I have shared my slides. Can you please confirm whether it is visible?
Yes, it is,
Yes, it
Doc.
is, Doc. Thank you. All right. So, um, yes, it's 9:06, and I think we should start with our session. And those who will join late due to some reasons, uh, they will refer to the recordings of this session. So, as are we good to go for our revision session?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Flora. So Regenesis has some integrated leadership model, which includes PQ, SQ, EQ. So all four Qs you know very well, and this is the graduation attributes. Like you should take the decision considering data or data-driven decision, local outlook, harmony, um, in diversity. So all those things we have already discussed, and ground rules. As just I'm just reading out all the ground rules for our session. Our purpose is to revise the session, or learning is the purpose of of this particular session, and we will be open minded, and whenever we are speaking we can use I think, I feel, etc., because you are a very important aspect of this learning. Listen carefully, one conversation at a time, and we will respect opinions of others, and uh, give constructive feedback, and build on ideas of others rather than destroying them. Take some risk and share new ideas, and have fun and enjoy the experience. As the session, today's session is this, I think this session will definitely help you for your examination. So whenever I'm saying that these points are important, or certain tips if I'm sharing, please make a note of all those things, as that it will help you for your upcoming examination. As per our course outline, we are having seven topics or seven sections, which we can say. First is key economic terminology. Second is the microeconomic environment. Section 3 is economics in business. 4 is macroeconomics. Fifth is measuring performance in the economic. Then section 6 is labor market. And last section is macroeconomic policy, monetary supply, and the foreign sector. These are the learning outcomes. We will be discussing learning outcomes whenever we will be dealing with that particular chapter, as we will start with 6.2, and we will try to cover most of the important points of all the chapters. And key economic terminology, this is the first chapter which we will be dealing with. And learning outcomes, there are two learning outcomes for this particular chapter or section. Understand key economic terminologies and concepts, and demonstrate an overview of economics. So, as what is economics? Economics is a social science. Why do we say economics is social science? Because it is not similar to pure science. Like in pure science, if you will find that in 2:1 proportion, if you will mix up oxygen and hydrogen, you will get one droplet of water. But economics, as it deals with human beings, so all whatever results are there, every time results will be different, right? Because it deals with human beings, or it is not like pure sciences. A social science that deals or that studies the choices that individuals, businesses, government, and entire societies make as they cope up with scarcity, and the incentive that influence reconcile those choices. So here you can consider that choices, incentives, scarcity, these are the keywords when we are studying economics, and we are going to discuss about all those points in detail. Definition of economics. So, as there are two branches of economics, one is microeconomics, another is macroeconomics. Microeconomics is a study of individuals, and microeconomics is a study of choices that individuals and businesses makes, like what to buy, if prices are increasing, whether to buy those goods or not. These are all individual decisions. And individuals or business houses, they make certain choices. And my microeconomics deals with those choices, make the way these choices interact in market and influence the government. Then macroeconomics, another branch is macroeconomics. And macroeconomics studies the aggregate. Aggregate is there are certain things related to, or we can say, a national economy, or we can say GDP, global economy, all those concepts, they are studied, or we can say inflation. So these are studied under macroeconomics. So I hope now this is clear, the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. So is it clear the difference? Micro studies individuals and macroeconomic studies economy, or they study, it is a study of aggregates like inflation, national economy, GDP, and all those things. So this is about micro and macroeconomics. So you can, whenever studying or revising this point, you can understand the definitions of micro and macroeconomics. Also, think of some examples which are related to micro and microeconomics. So next is economic problems. Now, which are economic problems? First is choices. Next is scarcity, then incentives, limited by income, price, and time. So as you know that, all the resources, they are, they're limited, and economics deals with that scarce resources, and human wants, they are unlimited. So how to make a balance between human wants, which are unlimited, and second, resources which are finite in nature. And you must be remembering that whenever we discussed this chapter, at that time, we uh, we considered, we dealt with so many examples and understood that yes, resources are scarce, resources are very limited. And at that time, we also had discussed about certain resources like water. Many a times we feel that is water is not scarce resource, because water is available in plenty, like 70% of the earth's surface is water only. But is that true? Maximum water, or most of water, it is in, um, it is not used, or it cannot be used for the consumption, human consumption. And then what is the available fresh water? It is just 2.5%. Out of 70%, only 2.5% is the fresh water. And again, out of that, only 0. James bond, that is 0.007%, that is available for human use. And that is the reason why those who are staying in the drought areas, they understand the utility, or they understand the usefulness, they understand that how we can utilize water, because it is scarce in nature. Another example we discussed, it was air. And if you remember, air, we are not paying for air, it is free of cost. But if you remember, I had shared one picture of one of the cities from China. So they used to live in the area which was very polluted, and for breathing in fresh air, they had put mask on their faces. So I hope you remember that particular picture which I had shared with you. And it is also understood that sometimes for people, they shift to certain areas which are pollution free. So this is about scarcity, and people or individuals, they need to make choices. Incentives are also there for. And last is income, price, and time, everything. It is limited, and that is the reason why we need to make choices. Now ppf, mark it as VVIMP, because uh, in economics, production possibility frontier is important, very important. Now what exactly is ppf? Let us discuss. PPF boundary between those combinations of goods and services that can be produced and those that cannot. So this is the possibilities. These are the boundaries. How best resources can be utilized and what are the maximum possibilities of utilization of those resources, and two different goods they can be manufactured. It shows the limits to the production of goods. It illustrates scarcity. Now, this is the example of PPF for pizzas and cool drinks. So you can see here on one of the axes, cool drinks are mentioned, that is millions, yes, millions of cans. And on the another axis, that is on horizontal axis, you can see pizzas in millions. And these are the possibilities, like if 10 million cans of cool drinks are manufactured, then there is no possibility to manufacture pizzas. And you can see at the last, the 5, if 5 million cans of cool drinks are manufactured, then possibility is, that is 4 millions of pizzas can be manufactured. So this is the possibility. And like that, considering this, you can see these are the possibilities like A, B, C, D, E, and F. You can see there are 2 points. There is one point inside the graph, that graph which is visible, which is orange in color. It is mentioned that attainable. Before, inside the graph, there is one point mentioned, that is Z. What does it mean? What is the meaning of that point Z? Can anyone please quickly tell me? What is the meaning of this? Yes, Flora, please go ahead. I can see you
At
raise
that
the hand.
point, at that point, the would be operating inefficient, like we're not using the full capacity of the resources that we have.
Exactly. For your contribution, Flora, it is a perfect thing. It means this particular organization is not using its resources efficiently. That is the meaning of this point Z. And there is another point which is, beyond the graph, which is unattainable. So anything, considering the resources, it is not possible uh, to achieve any other possibility, and that point is unattainable. So if in your examination, if you will get this question, ppf, so then you can include this graph, you can mention the possibilities, you can make the point which is Z, that is attainable, but yes, it is attainable, but resources are not efficiently utilized, and you can make the point which is unattainable. So these are the things which are required. Now I'm sharing, one of the, not one, I'm sharing two ppf informations in the chat box. And what you can do is, you can, as a homework, or as for your practice, you can use these examples. Draw production possibility curve, and if you can do that, I'm sure that it will help you to understand in detail. So here two examples I have given. One is wheat and pulses in quintals, and possibilities are given like A, B, C, D, E. These are the production possibilities. And wheat, if 15 quintals of pulses are manufactured, then zero possibility or zero quintal of wheat manufacturing is possible. So like that, you can see fish basket and potatoes. I think the same example is given in the study guide, if you can see. And this is the example, which is cool drink and pizza. I hope PPF part is clear to everybody. This is very important. So you can focus it. And these are certain points to remember about PPF. And we have already discussed these points. Next is economic problem. Daily we must decide how to make best use of finite resources, whether it is time, whether it is income, whether it is money, or any kind of resources. And same thing, the knowledge and skills required for economic analysis and decision making are fundamental prerequisites for individuals, teams, organizations, institutions, societies, and government. Rafil, you have raised the hand. Please go ahead.
The slide is off, ma'am.
Are you able to see the slide?
The
Now we
slide
are
is
on.
off.
I'm not able to understand. Are we on the same? Are you able to see the same slide, which is economic problem?
No, we are not
No, we
seeing
are
the
not seeing
slide.
the slide. I can
Okay,
see.
what
I
about
can see the
others?
slide on my side.
We can
You
see.
can see.
Sure, I don't know what is happening with my thing there.
Rafil, there can be some technical glitch. I think if you can rejoin, I think this may help. And please do confirm whether those slides are visible to you or not. I hope rest of the
Okay, I
students,
got
they
it
are
now.
not facing this problem. So this is about economic problem. And next, it is what, how, and for whom. Economics, it deals with what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So these are the questions of output question, distribution question, and the question related to how goods can be produced. So whether automation is used or whether human beings are working for the production, and the choices that people make are in the interest of self as well as society. So every time whenever we are working for ourselves, right, at the same time we are working for the nation, we are working for the society. Like whenever you are earning, whenever you are working and earning money for yourself, that value that is getting added to the GDP. So that is the reason why whenever people are working for self interest, at the same time they are working for the society. So society is also benefited out of the work which people are doing. Next is, as we had discussed about what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So that is first what to produce or what kind of goods and services are produced. It is output question. How those goods and services will be produced, which techniques are used. That is input question. And lastly, for whom that will the various goods and services be produced. So whether those goods and services are for one particular category of people, or that can be there can be certain goods which will be produced for kids. Some goods can be produced for let us say for corporate people. Some goods will be produced for some specific kind of people like women or men. So for who will be the final consumer of those goods? And that is the distribution question. Trade off is, it is very important, like scarcity and choices. We had discussed that there is a scarcity and individuals, they need to make certain choices. And trade-off is an exchange, that is giving up something to get something. The concept of trade-off is central to all the economics, and trade-off consider self and social interest decisions. That is a big trade-offs. Opportunity cost, as we know that opportunity cost is the central concept in economics. And you must be remembering that whenever we discuss this particular topic, we discussed one example, that is on Sunday, if a meeting is called by your boss, then and that meeting that turned to be unproductive, then what will be your responses? Then you might have thought that I could have used that time to spend with my family. Or second option, you could have read a book, you could have completed your assignment. Next, you might have watched a movie, or any other option. So the next best alternative which is forgone, that is the opportunity cost. A benefit, profit, or value of something, for example time, in this case we discussed about time, that must be given up to acquire or achieve something else. And since the factors of production, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, these are the factors of production, they can be put to alternative uses, and even action, choices, decisions that has associated opportunity cost. So since we need to make choices, at the same time we cannot select all the options. So we need to select one option, and other options we cannot choose. So alternate options, they are foregone. But the highest value of alternate options, that is called as opportunity cost. I'll give you one example here. If, let us assume, if US government spends some $800 million on war in Syria, this is just an example. This amount, that $800 billion, that amount cannot be spent on education, healthcare, or cutting taxes. I'll repeat. If US government decides to spend some huge amount, that is $800 billion for certain war purposes, that amount cannot be utilized for education, that amount cannot be utilized for, you can say, healthcare, employment generation programs, or cutting taxes. So this is how, if one option is selected, then there are some multiple things which can be done with the same amount of money, but all those options are foregone. And the best or the highest valued alternate which is foregone, that is called as opportunity cost. Now, as an activity, you think of this. Consider you are completing your education, and you have taken full time admission to the college. And then what can be the opportunity cost of your, what would be the opportunity cost of deciding to complete your qualifications? So in this situation, it will be, you can work in some company, you could have earn some salary, but you have forgone that option to get or to complete your qualifications. So this is the opportunity cost for getting your qualification completed. So I hope this opportunity cost uh, concept is clear to everybody. This is very, very important concept. Is it clear? You may make use of chat box, or you can use reactions, so that I will understand that you are understanding. And if you are having any question, please raise your hand, and or you can type your questions, you can mention your questions in the chat box. So scarcity and abundance, this we have already discussed about air or water. So we will not repeat it. This is just scarcity and abundance. Graphs in the economics. So graphs are very, very important. Whatever information you want to share, you can show that information with the help of graphs. And graphs are easy to read, and there are two axes, like one line is vertical, another is horizontal. X and y, they coordinates, that cause and effect relationships are there. Variables, that is quantity and prices. Scatter diagram, correlation and causation. Pattern to look for, certain times the curve is, it is downward sloping, certain times it is upward sloping. So that pattern you can understand when you make use of graphs. And that slope of relationship, if the slope is downwards, that slope is, it has a downward trend, then you can say that there is inverse relationship. If it is upward sloping, then you can say that there is a direct relationship between the variables. So this is about graphs. Now microeconomics definition. So you can learn the definition, because if in your examination, if differentiation is asked, then you can first would be you can write the definition, then you can write the meaning, then you can write the examples. Microeconomics is the study of economizing behavior of the individual economic entities. I'll repeat, microeconomics is the study of the economizing behavior of the individual entities, that is, individuals, household, firm, industries, and factory owners. So, this microeconomics, it deals with individuals. That can be individuals like you and me, individual households, individual firms, individual industries, or factory owners. So it deals with microeconomics, and macroeconomics is opposite to microeconomics. Macroeconomics deals with aggregates, and there are certain aggregates in the economy like inflation, then various policy decisions, then what we can say here, we can also include that what is the general price level, what is GDP, or how many resources are employed. So all those things, that all those aggregate things in the economy, they are dealt with macroeconomics. And you can learn one of the definitions here. Some four definitions are mentioned, and out of that, whichever definition you find suitable or easy, that definition you can learn. It will definitely help you. So macroeconomic theory is a theory of income, employment, prices, and money. I think this is very simple definition. Or you can say macroeconomic, it concerns the overall dimensions of economic life. And another definition, which is microeconomics, is the study of the behavior of the economy as a whole. It examines the overall level of nation's output, employment, prices, and foreign trade. So this is about the definitions of micro and macroeconomics. Key concepts in the economics that we had discussed, like factors of production, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. These are the factors of production. Many times I have observed that factors of production and circular flow, that full flow, that students, they get confused between the both. So please do remember that factors of productions are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And there are some circular flow. For circular flow, factors are different. So please understand the difference between the two. Choice, we have discussed. GDP is in 1 year's time period the price, the market price of goods and services which are produced within the boundaries, that is GDP, economic growth, market value, monetary policy of composition, and unemployment rates. Yes, so all those things we will be discussing. And economic modeling and theories, there are certain economic models or certain theories, and for making all those models and theories, graphs are prepared, diagrams are prepared, and words to represent that model is presented. Okay, now for economic modeling, ceteris paribus. For any theories you might have understood, you might have read that theory starts with ceteris paribus. It means it is the assumption that other things remaining the same, if so and so thing happens, then the result will be this. So that is the principle, that is assumption of ceteris paribus. Then the next is, I hope, can you give me one example of ceteris paribus? If you remember, you can make use of chat box. There are certain things we have also studied one of the examples, or let us say one of the theories, or one of the laws which starts with ceteris paribus. Do you remember? All right, let me tell you. Ceteris paribus is other things remaining the same. Like law of demand states that other thing remaining the same. If price increases, then demand falls. If price falls, demand increases. So this is about ceteris paribus. Another option is, and of course, for ceteris paribus, there are two important variables. One is exogenous variables, which may affect the analysis, because these are the variables which are outside which are outside the model. and those variables may affect um, those variables may affect whatever we are saying, whatever statement we are making. And economists, they recognize the several and other variables could have an impact on the analysis, but assume that they remain unchanged during the period of the study. And that is the reason why it is mentioned that ceteris paribus, that is other things remaining the same, then this will be the observation. Optimization assumption have gained importance due to their ability to generate precise models as well as their empirical validity. And the last one is positive and normative distinction. So positive is, let me tell you one example of positive economics. Positive economics focuses on what is happening in the economy. So we can say that, you may read in the newspaper, and you can understand that there will be increase in the rate of interest, or there will be increase in the rate of interest for loans or housing loans, and which may result in a decrease in demand for home loans. So that is what is happening. On that purpose, considering this, there can be one news or there can be one article by written by editor, that if these things are happening, so government should intervene, and government should um, make certain provisions that affordable homes can be given to middle class or poor people. So this is what first statement is, what is happening in the economy, and second statement is, it is what should happen. So that is the difference between positive and normative economics. So I hope this is clear. Next, it is economic modeling. There are three steps, like observation and measurement. Like whenever any model is prepared, initially some observations are taken, some measurements are done, and after that model is built. And after model is built, certain testing of that model is done. And if observations are the same, then lastly it can be that particular model, it can be developed into a theory. So these are the steps, or what we can say, these are the economic modeling steps: 1 2 3, that is observation, then model building and test model, and then develop a theory. Now, this is circular flow in a simple economic model. This is very, very important. This diagram as well as the other diagram, both the diagrams you can consider that both these diagrams are very, very important. And you can see here, as we had discussed, that land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur, these are the four factors of production. Consider that this is a simple economic model, and in this economic model, there are certain assumptions that there are only two factors, like only households and firms exist. And households, they are having three things of production, like land, labor, and capital, which is provided by household to firms. You can see one arrow here. Okay, you can see. I hope I'm just highlighting this factors of production. That is, land is provided by household, then labor is provided by household, and capital, which is required for the firms, it is also provided by the households. Now, firms, by using their ideas, their techniques, they are producing, they are manufacturing goods and services, and those goods and services are made available to the households. And as you know, factors of production, that is, for land, rent is paid by the firms; for labor, wages are paid by the firms; and for capital, interest is paid by the firms. And whenever firms are manufacturing goods and services, and households are, households are utilizing those goods and services, for which households are paying to the firms. So this is the simple, or a simple economy model, or we can say circular flow. And there are no injections, there are no savings. That is one of the assumption. Usually it does not happen, because people, they do save money for their rainy days. right? For future rainy days, everybody feels that they should save the money. And but yes, this is the assumption. If their money is withdrawn, then it is considered as withdrawals from the economy. And if from other sources, if money is injected, then that circular flow, it will be wider. So this is about circular flow in simple economy model. Now you can see there are certain important points to note here. Total spending is consumption spending plus investment spending, and it excludes government spending and taxes, because as this is simple model, in this model government as well as rest of the world or foreign sector is missing, or it is not included. No foreign sector. So government and foreign sector is not included in simple economic model, and cannot be used to study, this model cannot be used to study inflation, labor market, financial markets, and monetary policy, because it is not a complete model. It is a simple model, and which focuses only on firms and households. All right, investment spending, it is not mainly the function of income, and level of investment regarded as independent uh, of level of income. So this is about investment spending. Now these 4 points are very important when we are discussing about consumption spending. So consumption increases as income increases. Do you agree? Whenever income increases, people will buy more products. It is positive even if income is zero. If income is zero, still people will consume certain goods and services. And increases with increase in income. Consumption increases with increase in income, but it does not increase as much as the increase in income as a part of additional income is saved. So let us assume that you worked so hard, and you got very good appraisal. You got 100% increase in your salary. Like for example, last year you had 100 rands, hypothetical amount of course, and in next year you got 200 rands. Earlier you used to spend 100 rands for your consumption purposes, for you used to spend that money. When your income is increased by 100%, now your income is 200 rands, considering inflation and all other things, as your income increased. But yes, definitely you will increase your spending, but your spending will not be increased by 100%. You may spend up to 120, 130, but remaining portion of your income you will definitely save for future purposes. It is therefore a sum of autonomous consumption and induced consumption. So this is about consumption spending. Now this is full circular model. Again, mark 5 stars here for full circular model, because I feel this model is very, very important in economics. It covers all the aspects. Earlier we talked about firms, we talked about households. Now, as you know, that government is also one of the important part of the economy. And what is the role of government? Like firms and households, they are dependent on government. Also, whatever income is earned by households, they pay taxes to the government. Whenever households are purchasing certain goods and services, there are certain taxes which are applicable. Like there can be VAT, so which is paid by households whenever households are purchasing goods as well as services. In return, what government gives to households, in return of that, government makes certain infrastructure facilities, schools, hospitals, gardens, for the benefit of households. Another thing. Now, what about firms? Firms are, they are also paying taxes, right? Firms are also paying taxes to the government, and in return government is also giving them certain facilities. There are certain, what you can say, special economic zones, certain subsidies are given, certain facilities are created for the firm. So this is the role of government in the economy. And next is the foreign sector, like labor are also, whenever labor are supplied in the international market, and as a return they will be getting wages. So that is considering foreign sector. Another example you can consider here, that certain goods are supplied by foreign sector or foreign market, you can say, and for that purpose money, there is outflow of cash into the foreign sector. There is the role of financial institutions like banks, NBFCs, and others. So, what they do, individuals or households, they are saving in financial institutions, and in return, households are getting interest as well as dividend. Why dividend? If money is been invested in market, they will get dividend, and if money is invested in banks in the form of term loans, individuals or households, they will get interest. Another thing is firms. You know, firms, they need huge finances. They need loans. And who will give them loans? So financial institutions, they will give loan to firms, and as a return of that, firms will give interest on those loans. So this is full circular model, and this is very important. Any question? Yes, I can see hands are not raised. If you're having any questions, please raise your hand. Next is economic systems. So economic systems, it means by which societies or governments organize and distribute available resources. Economic systems that regulate factors of production, including capital, labor, physical resources, entrepreneurs. And there are basically some economic systems. First system is traditional system. It involves production and distribution of goods and services in the same way by each successive generation. Like 50 years back, whatever techniques were used for production as well as distribution, the same techniques they are following. Like there are examples like Nama people, some parts of Bhutan, or even in India, there are some of the tribes, they are using the same techniques. They are using the traditional systems for the production as well as distribution. And they are not ready to change. It takes a lot of time to change their methods. And very few economics or very few economies, they still use these economic systems. So if you know any other system or any other, what we can say, they're using this traditional system, then you can please mention it in the chat box. Another is command system. Command system is the economy is controlled by the central authority, or we can say government, which decides what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to distribute. So everything, all the decisions related to production, distribution will be taken by the central authority. We can call it as government. And there is one country which is having this command system in existence. So can you please mention what is the name of that particular country? Is it North Korea? Am I right? So please find out the names of the countries or those who are having these systems. Like if such example is there in your examination, then you can write the meaning, you can write the practical application, like which countries or which parts of the countries they are having these particular systems. Like for command system, we can say yes, North Korea is having this system. For traditional system, Bhutan or Nama people, they are having this traditional system, and you can discuss about it. Then market system is a system most commonly applied to solving the economic problem. A market is any contract or any contact or communication between potential buyer and seller of a goods or service. There must be at least one potential seller and one potential buyer. The seller must have something to sell, and buyer must have something, or buyer must have buying power or money. The market price must be determined, and law or tradition must guarantee the agreement. So this is about market system. And I'm still waiting for the responses in the chat box. If you can mention few of the responses for command system, I think that will be a great thing. So for traditional system, we discussed the example. For command system, I had mentioned it is North Korea. Earlier, some countries like Russia and China had this command system, but as of now, we can say only North Korea is having this system. And market system also we have developed. We have discussed. There are some certain countries like they are using mixed economy, and mixed economy is this system allows for economic decisions to be made partly with the government and partly with the market, that is households and firms. This system is mix of all the systems discussed, these 1 2 3 points which we have discussed. This is the mixture of all, as some functions are determined by government and others by the market. So this is about economic systems. And yes, these are certain real life cases. You can please go through it. So here ends our first chapter, which is key economic concepts. Are we good to go? Can we start with microeconomic environment? If you are having any questions, please raise your hand, or we can start with the next chapter, which is the microeconomic environment. So we have only one learning outcome here, that is explore the principles of microeconomics. So yes. So this chapter focuses on demand and supply, demand determinants of demand and individual demand. So individual demand refers to the demand of single economic agent such as individual, household, or a firm. And when we are talking about demand, it is desire backed by ability to pay and willingness to pay. So let me simplify this. So for demand, anything, for example, if I am having a demand, or let us say I am having a desire to buy Lamborghini, but if I don't have ability to pay for Lamborghini, then it is not considered as demand. So as a concept, demand, we can say that demand, there are three important things. First thing is or the consumer should have desire for certain things. Second thing is ability to pay that, but whatever is the cost, whatever is the market price of that particular goods, that potential buyer should have ability to pay for it. And third important point is willingness to pay. Certain times people, they do have money, but they do not require certain goods. Then they though they are having money, though they are having ability, but they are not willing to pay that much amount, then it is not considered as demand. But yes, you can consider that demand is desire backed by ability to pay and willingness to pay. Let us move on. A household is all the people who live together and who make joint economic decisions, or who are subject to others making such decisions for them. Now, determinants of individual demand are, there are two types of factors that affect the demand for the commodity, that is exogenous factor and endogenous factor. So please mark this as important. Okay, this is important. Endogenous factors are those with a direct effect on demand. So how they have direct effect on demand? That is price. Because if price changes, then there is direct effect on demand. If price is higher, demand will be reduced. If price is low, demand will be higher. And that is the reason why you might have observed at the time of year-end sale. I think there can be, I think in next month, there will be year-end sales everywhere. and that is the reason why the sales will increase. Why? Because people, they will, it is the general observation that at lower price people tend to buy more number of goods. So that is endogenous factor. Price is endogenous factor. Then exogenous factors affect demand from outside the model, and that is example can be income and climate. So um, some other determinants of individual demand are, you can consider that there are some substitute goods. Then there can be the probability of increase or decrease in the prices, taste, fashion, preferences of people. These are some other determinants of individual demand. So please consider these endogenous and exogenous factors important, because these are important whenever we are talking about demand. We have also discussed this when we talked about economic modeling. Now, this is the law of demand, demand schedule and demand curve. So firstly we will discuss about this graph. You can see here pizza price and number of pizzas sold. This information is provided. Now price of pizza is 100, number of pizzas sold 0. Price is 80, number of pizza increased by 100. Price is reduced by 20 rands. Again, quantity is increased by 100. And like that, the same pattern is there in this particular example. Based on this information, this graph is prepared. You can see, price is mentioned on the vertical line, and price 100, 80, 60, 40, 20, and quantity is mentioned on the horizontal axis. Why price is mentioned on vertical axis is, price is the independent factor and quantity is dependent factor. So the factor which is what we can say, a factor which is dependent is mentioned on vertical axis, and the factor which is dependent on the other, that is mentioned on the horizontal axis. And it is observed that higher the price, lower is the quantity, or lowest is the quantity demanded. And if lowest is the price, highest is the quantity demanded. And based on that, that is the reason why you can see the graph is downward sloping from left to right. Okay, some of you may say the graph is upward sloping from right to left, but this is a general way to say that graph is, from left to right. What is the pattern that usually we explain? So the graph is, demand curve is downward sloping from left to right, which means that there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. And based on that, law of demand is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Demand curve slopes downward left to right, and each 20% fall in pizza price pushes demand up by another 100 pizzas. So this is all about demand schedule and demand curve. I hope this is clear to everybody. Now, what about market demand? Market demand is sum of individual demands. That is, in a market system, the plans of consumers and producers of goods and service that must be taken into account. Now, here you can see there are two graphs, okay, considering price and quantity, D0 and D1. These are the two graphs which are visible here. So which is considered, the shift of graph from the point D0 to D1, it is considered as shift in demand curve. So when there is a shift in demand curve, there are two things. First thing is, there can be change in price. So if there is change in price, there will be a movement along this curve. That is, that particular point, it will be on D0 only, there will not be shift. But if there is no change in price, but other factors are changing, that can be taste, preferences, government policies, or any other factor changes other than price, then there will be rightward or leftward shift. So if there is increase in quantity, there will be rightward shift. If there is decrease in quantity demanded, then there will be shift will be to the left hand side. So this is about market demand and shift in demand curve. Shift, if there is, I'll repeat, this is important point. If there is change in price, there will be movement along this graph or this particular curve. But other than price, if other factors are changing, that can be taste, preferences, habits of people. Next, another example can be government policy may change. There can be the expectation of future increase or decrease in the prices. Then there will be shift in the demand curve. So here, if you remember, I had shared all these slides with you, and these are certain examples. You can let us read one of them. That is, a store owner finds that customers are willing to pay more for umbrellas on rainy days. So this is the first example. Now you need to find out whether there will be a shift in demand curve, change in demand curve, or change in quantity demanded. So as answers also I had mentioned here, a store owner finds customers willing to pay more umbrellas on rainy days. Answer here, it will be the quantity of umbrella demanded is higher at rainy season or higher at any given price on rainy day than the dry day. So this is the rightward shift. Quantity demanded will increase and there will be a rightward shift of the demand curve since it is given that price and quantity demanded rises. So these are the answers. This is just for your information and your references. Please go through it. Answers are also mentioned here. Next, I hope demand part is clear. Now let us move to supply part. What is, let me please switch on the power. All right, thank you. Now supply, what is supply? Supply can be defined as a quantity of goods or services that producers plan to sell at each possible price during a certain period. So it means supplier, based on considering the price, how much goods supplier wants to supply. So that is, now individual supply refers to the supply by single firm. A firm is unit that employs factor of production to producer or to produce goods and services that are sold to the market. And determinants of individual supply, again, the quantity of goods and goods supplied by a single firm in a particular period depends on the price of the product. And there is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. The prices of alternative products, the price of factors of production and other inputs and expected future prices. So this is about supply. Now, law of supply says that ceteris paribus, we talked about ceteris paribus, other things remaining the same. The higher the price of goods, the greater the quantity supplied. If price is high, supply is greater. If price is low, supply is, of course, supply is less. So here same diagram is given and the same example we are considering price of pizza and number of pizzas supplied. Here you can see 100 is the price and number of pizzas supplied 500 is the quantity. You can see now pizza price is reduced by 20 rands. Number of pizzas supplied 400. So the quantity when there is decrease in value by 20 rands, there is decrease in the quantity supplied by 100 numbers or 100 units. Then again there is reduction in the price, that is price is reduced by 20 rands. Again there is decrease in quantity supplied. And based on this, graph is prepared like x and y axis. This is 0. Now you can see here 100 is the price and sorry 100 is the price. Then you can see here 500 is the quantity which is supplied. Then price is reduced 80, quantity is 400. Then price is 60, quantity is 300. Price is 20 quantity is 100, and lastly if price is 0, then 0 is the quantity supplied. So considering all these points, graph is prepared, and this graph is upward sloping from left to right. So, okay, which means that there is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. Shift in supply curve, as we discussed with demand curve, similar to that, there is shift in supply curve as well. Movement in and shift along the supply curve are similar to movement and shift in demand curve. A change in price results in movement along the supply curve, which is change in the quantity supplied. A change in other factors shift the supply curve. See, if there are change in other factors, like there is a possibility that in future prices will increase, then there will be shift in supply curve. Or there is a possibility that in future, if the prices may reduce, then again quantity supplied will be more. Considering these things, there will be shift in the supply curve. It can be to the rightward direction or to the leftward direction. Examples similar to demand. Some examples are mentioned here. Let us discuss one first example. More homeowners put their houses up for sale during a real estate boom that causes house prices to rise. Now, answer to this is the quantity of houses supplied rises as a result of increase in prices, and this is movement along the supply curve because there is change in price. So whenever there is price related thing or price related variations, then there will be movement along the supply curve. And there is, if other factors are changing, then there will be a shift that can be shift to the rightward or shift to the leftward of the supply curve. These are some other examples. So please go through it. Next point is equilibrium. And considering the same here, one of the example is mentioned like price and quantity. You can see here prices are mentioned from 5 to 1. Quantity demanded at higher, if higher is the price, then lowest is the quantity. At lowest is the price, then highest is the or greatest is the quantity which is demanded. And there is a direct relationship between price and quantity demanded for supply. You can see this when price is 5, supply is 10, and when price is 1 rand, supply is only 2, that is the lowest. Considering this, one graph is prepared, and you can see here both these graphs, wherever at whatever point they are intersecting, that point is named as E. Point E is nothing but the equilibrium point, and equilibrium point is, that is when demand and supply both are equal. That is what equilibrium. And the same thing is explained here, that market condition, surplus or shortage. And you can see here certain times the supply is, here you can see quantity supplied is more for first two examples, like 5 and 4. At the price level 5 and 4, there is surplus, and if there is surplus in the market, prices tend to fall. And at equilibrium, as equilibrium, demand is equal to supply, then prices may remain constant. But you can see at price level 2 and 1, there is shortage because demand is higher than supply, and there is shortage and prices tend to rise because this is a situation wherein there is high demand in the market, supply is limited, and due to which prices will increase. For this, for shortage, you may relate it to one of the examples which we discussed in our first class, that is related to Flipkart. Whatever has happened, I told you that whatever situation has happened or had happened in the year 2014, so economics has answered to that situation. So that strategy, it was good, but the market forces, demand and supply, they could not match, and that ultimately whatever situation had happened, it had happened in the year 2014 related to Flipkart's big billion day sale. So this is about equilibrium. Equilibrium is the situation wherein demand is equal to supply. Now, what is consumer surplus and producer surplus? In short, I can tell you that whenever consumer is considering or consumer is ready to pay certain price, but the goods are available at lower prices. So let us understand. Rafilwe, are you there and are you able to see the slides?
Yes, doc. I'm here.
Great. So I will
Thank
take
you.
your name for discussing one of the examples, and I hope you will not mind. So
Not a problem.
yeah, thank you. So Rafiya went to the market and she wanted to buy a notebook. I really don't know what is the exact price of the notebook, but let us assume price of the notebook is, when she left her house, she understood that the price of the notebook is 15 rands. But when we reached in the market, she knew or she got to know that now the price is only 10 rands. So she paid 10 rands. So she has surplus 5 rands. And this is consumer surplus. The same thing is mentioned here. Consumer surplus means that the consumer receives a good deal on the goods or services that he or she purchases. So Rafil Bey got a very good deal that instead of 15 rands, she had to pay 10 rands only, and ultimately she has Rafilway has a surplus of 5 rands. So this is considered as consumer surplus. Next is producer surplus. For producer surplus, let us take one example of a farmer. I have mentioned it in next slide. Yes. So if a farmer is prepared to sell 1000 bags of apples at 10 rand a bag, so one bag is, it can be sold for 10 rands. And like that, the farmer had 1000 bags. So if we can calculate 1000 multiplied by 100, that farmer, he was ready to accept 10,000 rands, for his particular deal, whatever apple bags he had. Whenever farmer reached in the market, he understood that now today's market price is 15 rands per bag, and he sold considering 15 rands per bag. And ultimately he saved, sorry, not saved, he earned some money, some extra money, which we he which he had decided earlier. Like you can see here, 15,000 is the actual amount which he had received, and earlier he was willing to sell the goods, total number of goods, for 10,000. So whatever is the difference between these two prices is the surplus, and it is known as producer surplus. I hope you have understood both the concepts, producer surplus and consumer surplus. Now government needs to intervene considering the prices. I think we need to, considering the time, we will just discuss or we will highlight on the important parts. Like government intervention is required for price ceiling. Certain times, prices increases like anything, and which is not good for common people. And or even it is the responsibility of government that each section of the society, from poor people, middle class people, as well as rich people, everybody will get access to all the resources. And that is the reason why setting maximum prices, some maximum prices are decided by the government. That can be related to food, that can be related to some electricity or some other things, or setting minimum prices. This is for the benefit of the producer. Or certain times it happens like farmers, uh, for them it is beneficial that if price floors or minimum prices are decided, so due to which farmers, they are not exploited. And subsidizing certain products or activities. Certain times government, what does government subsidizes certain products. So you might have observed that there are certain food items which are considered as a necessity for human being, and those goods, there is subsidy on those goods. Like there are certain shops which are set by government, and those shops are providing food grains at a cheaper rates. Similarly, you might have observed for vaccinations. If vaccinations are done at government hospitals, it is at subsidized rate compared to the private hospitals. There are certain vaccines which are compulsory for babies, So you might have observed that, for government hospitals, you just need to make one case paper, and all those vaccinations can be free of cost. So these are certain things which are done by government. And lastly, taxation certain products or activities. There are certain products government feels that those products are not good for the health of people, and that is the reason why whenever budgets are declared at that time, you might have observed that those products, there is high taxes like cigarettes or alcohol. Government imposes high taxes on those products, but how it is, uh, how the consumption is reduced, it is a question mark. So this, but yes, government intervenes by these four ways, and I hope this is clear. Price elasticity of demand. All right. So calculating price elasticity of demand. The price elasticity of demand is unit free measure of responsiveness of quantity demanded to the change in goods price. So percentage, the formula here is the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. So, okay, we can, discuss this with example. So first, first category can be unit elastic demand, that is price elasticity is equal to 1, which means that when percentage change in demand is equal to percentage change in price. So the change in demand is the same as change in price. So that is considered as unit elastic demand. It means the change is the same. You can see here from the example that price of cloth per meter. So please consider the amount in rands, it is not in rupees. So price of cloth per meter, it is 20 rands, and now the next price is changed, price is increased by 50%, and now the next level price is 30 rands. If you can see the demand, with the increase in 50%, if there is increase of 50% in price, decrease of 50% in quantity demanded. Got it? So this is unit elastic demand, and the graph is downward sloping like this. So this is unit elastic demand, wherein percentage change in demand is the same as percentage change in price, which is considered as unit elastic demand, which means price elasticity is equal to 1. Next is certain times we do observe that there is perfectly inelastic demand. When quantity demanded, it does not change at all in the response to the change in price. If price is reduced, still demand is the same. If price is increased, still demand is the same. So, uh, yes, so this is the graph. You can see here price of cloth per meter. It is 20 rands, 30 rands, 40 rands. Price is changed, but quantity demanded is the same. And the graph, if you prepare considering this information, it will be parallel to the vertical axis. And to quote example for this kind of situation, it can be the demand for salt, right? The demand for salt, it will be the same. You will not increase the demand for salt when prices are low, or if there is prices of salt, if they are increased, then you will not decrease the consumption will remain as it is. So you can think of some other real time examples with reference to perfectly inelastic demand. And if you come across with any example, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Next, next is degrees of elasticity. Perfectly elastic demand, that is price elasticity is infinity. So when the demand for commodity expands or contracts to any extent without any change or with very little change in price, demand for the commodity is said to be perfectly elastic, or it can be said that infinity elastic. In real life, uh, we very rarely we come across with such situation, and you can see the example here. Price is 30 rand, 30 rand, price is the same, but demand is, earlier demand was 100 meter cloth, and at second level the demand is drastically increased, it is 400 meter, And the graph, if we prepare considering this information, it will be parallel to the horizontal axis. So this is about degrees of elasticities. These are the diagrams which are given in the study guide, and I have included this. So you can revise it. Next is income elasticity of demand. This is related to income and how when income changes, how quantity demanded changes. So that is studied. There are certain, it is a general statement that increase in income leads to increase in demand, but it is not 100% truth, because whenever income increases, people may shift uh, their demand from inferior goods to better quality goods. Example, to give an example, I can say here, like poor people, if they are using low quality bread, then they will shift their demand to better quality bread. So this is about income elasticity. And next is cross elasticity. For cross elasticity, we had discussed like Pepsi and Coca Cola. They are, we can consider them as substitutes. So if the price of Coca-Cola, let us assume that Coca-Cola and Pepsi both are for 10 rands, both are available for 10 rands, but Coca-Cola increased the price by 2 rands and Pepsi is still available for 10 rands. Then as the price of Coca-Cola has increased, there will be increase in the demand for Pepsi. So this is the in general. This is in general. Whenever we are making these models, whenever we are making these theories, they are in general. Now there can be some people who will say that whatever may be the price, we like to have Coke only or Coca Cola only. So these are the exceptions. But in general, this is the thing that whenever price of one commodity or price of one commodity increases and there is some substitute, people will shift their demand to that substitute product. And complement goods, we have also discussed about complement goods like pen and refill. They are considered as complements, or bread and butter, bread and jam. So these are certain complements. So if there is increase, or if we can say if there is a decrease in the price of one thing, then there can be increase in the consumption of other thing. If the prices of bread are decreased, people may increase the consumption of the complement product. If the prices of cars are decreased, then people may tend to buy cars, but the substitute good for the car is petrol or CNG or diesel. So that the demand for the complement will increase. So yes, this is about elasticity. The same thing is explained here. Yes, percentage price elasticity. Yes, this we have discussed. Now monopoly. Monopoly is the purest form of monopoly is market structure in which there is one seller of goods and services that has no substitute, and entry to the market is blocked. So here you can see these are the characteristics of monopoly. One seller, there is only one seller, there is no competition to that particular seller in the market. Unique product, whatever product are manufactured, it is a unique product. Then next is information largely irrelevant, and there are barriers to entry. No other people they can enter into the market. And examples here for monopoly we can discuss in India, rail or railway is the example, because till now only government has a monopoly of railways. I think considering South Africa, I think Exxon is the electricity provider and they are having monopoly uh, in particular, or we can say in electricity providing. So I hope I am correct. Now, certain time, what is the government's response to the monopoly? First thing is government can ignore it. For there are certain things for which patent and other things are required, and if any of the company, any of the firm has taken patent for that, then it is government should make an opportunity to that particular firm to exploit it, which means to use the patent. So in certain cases government ignore it, certain times break it up, certain times that monopoly can be it can be broken if with the new entry in the market. So those who are capable, such those they can be given entry. And next is regulated, that monopoly can be regulated so that people at the large, they will get benefited. So this is the government response to the monopoly. And now here we have completed with the second chapter, revision of second chapter as well. I hope uh, all well, you are understanding whatever we are discussing. And definitely I will give you break, but after completion of third chapter, whenever we will be completing the third chapter, I will give you just 10 minutes break will be sufficient, because there are so many things to discuss. And at the last, I will give you certain tips for writing your examination. Actually, instead of writing, I must say for typing the examination, because if I understand correctly, you will be giving online examination, and instead of writing, you should be or you will be typing your examination. So we will discuss on that part as well, because my purpose is, the purpose of this revision session is you should revise all the concepts which we are studied in this module. And this revision should help you to write your paper very well, and you should score very good marks in your examination. All right. So next is economics in business. Learning outcome is demonstrate knowledge of how markets work. This is the learning outcome for this particular chapter. Now, what is firm? Firms are core economic agents that aim to minimize input cost, maximize output and profits. So, with less inputs, maximum profit, maximum outputs can be fetched. That is the uh, principle, or that is the main aim of firms. It is therefore important that firms understand their cost structures. Firms should understand their cost structures. Now, which are the important points for the firms? First is profit maximization. Next is explicit cost, implicit cost, and economic profit. Let us understand in detail. First, total economic cost. Sum of opportunity costs of both market supplied resources and owner supplied resources. It is considered as economic cost. In short, economic cost is explicit cost and implicit cost. Now, what is explicit cost? That monetary payments to owners of market supplied resources. So you may consider here like land. If you are paying rent for the land, that amount, labor cost, whatever labor they are supplied, and if you are paying for those labor, so all those costs are considered as explicit cost, which means actual payments, there is actual outflow of cash, that is considered as explicit cost. There are certain implicit cost. What exactly it is? That is non-monetary opportunity cost of using owner supplied resources. So if owner is using his own fund, that is no, and for which he may not get any interest. If the same amount, if owner had invested in the market, owner could have received some dividend or interest on that amount, but this possibility is not available because same amount is used in the business. Let us assume if owner's wife is working in this particular business, she's providing her services to the business, and owner is not paying her, right? So that is what, that is the non-monetary opportunity cost, for which owner is not paying, but yes, there are certain efforts which are added. So this is implicit cost. Economics takes into consideration explicit as well as implicit cost. So if you understand correctly, in accounting, as you are from BCompt batch, you have studied accounting statements. In accounting, there is one of the concept that is monetary policy, and as per monetary policy, only those things which we can express in terms of money, and if the cost is incurred, only those things are taken into consideration for accounting purposes. But for economics, there are certain things, there are certain non-monetary opportunity costs which are taken into consideration, as a result of which you can see accounting cost is always less than economic cost. Next, Now, economic implicit cost and explicit cost that we have discussed. Now, zero economy for profit maximization, there are certain things wherein there is economic or positive economic profit, there can be negative economic profit, or there can be zero economic profit due to explicit and implicit cost. Now, what is revenue? Revenue is price multiplied by quantity. So, whatever is the price of the goods multiplied by quantity, you will get total revenue. And this is the graph of the marginal curve, average total cost, and demand is equal to average revenue is equal to marginal revenue. So this is the line. So this is just for your information. Now let us focus on short run. What is short run? What is long run? And then there was a last question, I guess, in your assignment, which was related to this chapter. So that particular point is very important if we consider this chapter. Short run. Let us focus on short run. Short run is a time frame in which the quantity of at least one factor of production is fixed. In the short run, what we can say, all the factors of production like land, labor, capital, out of that, all other factors may change, but land remains constant. One of the factor of production, it is fixed. And in short run, that is land, usually. For most firms, capital, land, and entrepreneurship are fixed factors of production, and labor is a variable factor of production. We can we call the fixed factor of production the firm's plant. Plant is considered as fixed plant, or we can consider land that is fixed. In the short run, a firm's plant is fixed. Long run. Now, long run is opposite to this. The long run is time frame in which the quantities of all factors of production can be varied. That is, the long run is a period in which the firm can change its plant. And long run, or in the long run, firm might open second and third plant. So all the factors of production in the long run, they are variable, they can change. But in the short run, land or plant is considered as constant, and other factors of production that may change. But in the long run, as we discussed, all the factors of production, they may change. Now, let us talk about the concept which is returns to scale concept. Now, here, please focus on this concept because this is very important. The returns to scale concept explains the behavior of the rate of increase in output, that is production, relative to the associated increase in the input, that is factors of production in the long run. Now let us understand one of the increasing and diminishing marginal returns. And this, you will understand this particular concept whenever that particular chart will be shared with you. So increasing and diminishing marginal returns, it considers that the marginal product of labor is the increase in total product that results from one unit increase in the quantity of labor employed. So if additional labor is employed, then what is the result? If there is increase or decrease in the production or output. So that is studied here. The law of diminishing and marginal return states as units one input are added with all other inputs are constant, a point will be reached where the resulting addition of output will begin to decrease. That is marginal product. So here, for example, so here we can see that there is one of the laws, that diminishing marginal utility, which we had discussed. And that law says that marginal utility is that as one unit of input is given, then what is the result? What is the utility? That initially that utility is the marginal utility is the highest, and later on it starts diminishing, it starts reducing, and later on, lastly, that utility is it is zero, and after that still inputs are given, then there will be disutility, or it will not help, or it will not add some value. So that is the law of diminishing marginal utility. And if you remember, for that purpose, I had given one example. I think biscuit or burger. Uh, Let us assume that you are very much hungry. A burger is given to you. You will have that burger. You will get the maximum satisfaction that yes, I was hungry and I had a burger. Second burger is given to you because you were hungry, but you will get the satisfaction after having the burger, but it will not. It will be less than the previous one. And after having second burger you are full. Now you can't eat anything, right? And still if another burger is given, marginal utility will be zero. You will not be able to eat, you will not be able to have that burger. And later on, if you are forced to have that burger, then it will result in disutility. It will affect your health, right? So this is the law of diminishing marginal utility. Now let us understand one of the examples which is given. That example is of restaurant. Let me see the chat box. I think Daphne has mentioned something. Let me read it and then we will discuss about the example which is given in our study guide, that is related to restaurants. All right, so Daphne, I understand. What you can do is the recordings will be made available on the portal. So you may refer to the recordings. And for this particular module, just read entire study guide. Your study guide is beautifully prepared, and this will definitely help you. I understand your situation, so please do not worry. All right, so we are going to discuss about one of the examples which is given in the study guide and which is related to restaurants. Okay, so just give me a minute, please. Yes, in the study guide, if you refer to page number 56, you will understand some very simple example is given. And with this example, that marginal product concept will be very clear to you. A restaurant employs one cook. However, the kitchen has the capacity for two cooks. So the restaurant decides to add a takeaway service to its offering. So it is very obvious that if restaurant has capacity, that two cooks they can work together, and they can provide good service to people, and as a result of which their profits can increase. So restaurant decides again to add takeaway service as well. As the takeaway orders increase, so additional cooks are added. As everybody, it is the mindset of all the businessmen that if there is, as they have increased the input, profits are increasing. They may feel that let us add additional cooks so that that will complement the staff, and with two cooks, the marginal product rises. However, if on employing the third cook, fourth cook, fifth cook, the total product increases, but the marginal output declines. Marginal is after adding one cook, whatever output has increased, whatever total product has increased, uh, it is not the same, right? Whenever adding second cook, that marginal product was the highest, but whenever third, fourth, fifth cook was added, then or appointed, I should say, so then marginal product it was decreasing. So let me explain this. You can see cooks like zero. When first cook was appointed, total product was 20. So marginal is the difference between previous one and the current one. So marginal product is 20. When second cook is appointed, total product increased, which is 50. That is 20 plus 30. So addition is 30 in total product. So we can say marginal product is 30. You can see here again, when third cook is appointed, total product is 75. So there is addition of 25 in marginal product. So that is 75 minus 50, that is 25. So you can see here that marginal product initially it is increasing, but later on it started decreasing. So why this happens? This happens because cooks are getting each other's way, right? It's it wastes their time. There is insufficient equipments because everybody is using the same equipment, they're using the same place certain times, it increases waiting time and all other things, and which results in decrease in marginal product. And the law of diminishing return applies only in the short run, because in the long run, restaurant would increase its size by relocating to the bigger premises and employing more capital, that is acquiring more equipments. And remember, fixed factors of production impose capacity constraint of short run production, and short run is usually it is less than 1 year. And in short run, as land remains the same, but in the long run, all those things, all those factors of production, they can be changed. I hope this restaurant example is clear to everybody. There is another example which is given in your study guide, which is, you can see this is the production schedule. I think this only we had discussed now. um, this is the diagram. You can see here average total cost is equal to average fixed cost plus average variable cost. And to revise this, a fixed cost remains the same, like rent remains the same, insurance remains the same for certain period of time. But variable cost, it varies as there is increase or decrease in the output, like raw material changes, then electricity expenses. If more number of units are produced, and if automation is used, then there will be increase or decrease in the electricity bill or raw material or some other factors. So these are certain examples, and it is very simple. Next. Okay. Now, there is one more example which is given in your study guide, and I must discuss about it. It is related to production, which is sweater. And if you refer to that example, I am not able to share that particular study guide with you. The reason being, I have already shared these PPT slides, and for sharing this study guide, again I need to stop sharing my PPT slides, and it will take time, and highlighting is also not possible. So if possible, please refer to your study guide so that you will understand, or if not, you can just understand the concept now, and then afterwards you may refer to the study guide, and make the calculations on your own. In our earlier class, I told you to calculate it on your own, if you remember. This is the schedule of marginal cost and average cost. In first column, labor workers per day are given, like 0 to 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Output, that is sweaters per day, is given. That is on a possibility, it is 0 sweaters, then 4, then 10, then 13, 15, 16. Then total fixed cost, which is 25. As I told you, fixed cost remains the same. So here fixed cost is 25 for all these A to F. Total variable costs, they are given in dollars per day, that is 0, 25, then 50, then 75, then 100, and 125. So total cost is total fixed cost plus total variable cost. So 25, that is fixed cost, plus variable cost is added, like 25 plus 25 for B possibility, that is, or B level, we can say it is 50. Then 25 plus variable cost is 50, which is 75. Then 25 is the fixed cost, variable cost is 75. You will get total cost, which is 100. Then 25 plus variable cost 100, 125. And lastly, 25 is the fixed cost and variable cost is 125. Your total cost will be 150. How to calculate marginal cost then? So for calculating marginal cost, you can consider total cost divided by the output. So like 50 divided by 4, or we can say whatever is the difference between these two, like 50 and 25, there is a difference of 25. So you can see 25 divided by 4, it will give you 6.25. Then there is again a difference of 25 in 50 and 75. Total output is 10. So You need to just consider it and then make the calculation. It is calculated as, examples are given here. So please, uh, you can consider those and calculate. It is output, the cost, whatever is the marginal cost, it is total cost, and output is also taken into consideration. Average fixed cost, that is fixed cost, whatever is the fixed cost divided by output, you will get average fixed cost. Average variable cost, same thing, total variable cost divided by output, and total average total cost, that is total cost divided by output. So this is the table, and if you will refer to it, you will understand that initially what happens whenever additional outputs are added. Initially, the marginal product, it increases. Later on, it remains at certain level, that is returns are constant, and after that it starts decreasing. So why this happens? Okay, or it happens that now why this happens, that we will be discussing. It happens because of economies of scale. Whenever returns are increasing, right? As I told you, marginal returns, they are increasing. Then they are increasing because of economies of scale. Now, what type of economies of scale are there? So please understand. Okay, firstly, we will be considering on economies of scale, and whenever there is returns are increasing. So there are certain internal economies of scale, like technical economies of scale. As huge firms like large scale businesses, they can afford to invest in expensive and specialist capital machinery. To take an example, you can take example of supermarket chains such as Tesco or Sainsbury's. So for all those supermarket chains, they can make use of latest technology, but which is not possible for a corner shop, or a corner supermarket. Then specialization. Second point is specialization of workforce. Larger business, they split complex production processes into separate tasks. Like there are so multiple complex processes, but huge industries or large scale industries, they can simplify. They can make certain small departments, and which will be focusing only on one particular task, which helps them to increase their productivity. And specialization helps them to increase the production. Then there are certain marketing economies of scale, like large firm, they can spend on advertising, they have marketing budgets, even some large output can purchase its input in bulk, and whenever input is purchased in bulk, they will get those product at cheaper rates, certain discounts, as well as what we can say credit facilities can be given by the suppliers. So these kinds of economies of scale are received to the firms in initial stage. Of course, this is for large scale organizations when we are considering it. Then certain managerial economies also there, like large scale organizations, they can hire some special uh, special employees, a special staff who is having a specialized knowledge in one particular areas. They can make division of labor. Division of labor means some specific tasks can be given to the labor who is having specific skills. And then finance economies, as you know that as a firm has a reputation, um, for them getting loan facilities, getting certain discounts from the suppliers, it is possible. Even network economies are also there. Then external economies are also in favor in this case, like development of research and development facilities at local universities, that several businesses, they are in that particular area, they will get benefit for that. Certain times external economies of scale occur with industry, that is that what we can say is external economies of scale. There are certain external factors which are also important, and those factors are favorable for increasing what we can say production, so or output. Then after certain time, what happens? Returns are constant. Why returns are constant? The reason being, the returns are constant because whatever will be your production, though you are producing at higher scale or at a lower scale, you are equipping or you are using the same equipments. Okay, so that is of course that can be a constraint which we can say. Then um, what happens at why returns are constant? The returns are constant because there are economies of scale, there are diseconomies of scale. So both economies and diseconomies, they get balanced, and as a result of that, returns are constant. Like a firm remains just as efficient as it becomes larger. That is, average cost remains the same, output increases at the same proportion as input increases. In earlier stage, what happens? Whatever inputs are given, outputs are more than that. But at this stage, outputs are the same as inputs are given. Example is given here. We double the input and get double the output. When firms experience constant returns, they will only invest to expand their productive capacity if consumers are willing to pay. Firms will not cut average price during this period since costs are not falling. Next is diseconomies. Next is diseconomies of scale. That is, a firm becomes less efficient as it becomes larger. That is, average cost increases. Output increases by smaller proportion. Output, yes, whatever inputs are given, output increases, but it is not the same. It increases, but at a lower level, which we can say, or lower quantities. In other words, firms double the input but get less than double the output. And this often occurs because of difficulties experienced with coordinating large enterprises. So as enterprises, they are uh, growing. Certain times what happens, there can be certain um, labor market related issues, like trade union related issues. If labor market, they are asking for more number of facilities. If they go on strike, such things may happen, and that is the reason why it results in diseconomies of scale. So we talked about economies of scale, constant returns to scale, and diseconomies of scale. Again, now you can describe likely economies and diseconomies. I think I have given you some of the hints for large supermarket chain. You please refer to those things. And large smartphone manufacturer operating in several countries. So this is what we can say. This is applied questions. So please refer to it. And yes, we are done with this chapter. Next chapter is macroeconomics. So now we have discussed about microeconomic uh, things. Now let us focus on macroeconomics. Learning outcome for macroeconomics is evaluate principles of macroeconomics. So here you can see, these are the same definitions which we had discussed. In short, macroeconomics deals with aggregates and examples as we discussed. It is GDP, then what we can say other examples can be inflation, deflation. So all those things we can consider for macroeconomics. Key questions of macroeconomics are: what determines economic activities? How is the equilibrium level of national income determined? What determines the level of foreign trade and trade balance? And how do monetary and fiscal policy affect the economy? So what is monetary and fiscal policy? That we are going to discuss in detail in one of the special chapters. Now, this micro and macroeconomics, these terminologies are very important. Examples also, you must remember what are the examples, what are the questions which are dealt in macro as well as microeconomics. Now, yes, there are various schools of thought. Okay, so which schools of thought? Firstly, it is a classical school of thought, and as we have already talked about it in detail, that classical school of thought, it is given by Adam. Who? Tell me, who has discussed about it? Economist, Scottish economist Adam Smith. Originated in which year? in the year 18th and 19th century. If you remember correctly, it is like this economist, he was of the opinion that there are two forces like demand and supply, and they get there is equilibrium, that automatically they come in the stage of equilibrium, that is demand is equal to supply, uh, due to the concept which is invisible hand, like demand and supply, that is if the supply is increased, okay, it will automatically lead to demand. If there is more supply, then demand will automatically be created, or we can say supply creates its own demand. It was the basic principle, and it is considered as, laissez-faire. Government need not intervene. Government intervention is not at all required as per this classical school of thought. It focuses on economic growth and economic freedom and belief in free competition. But and it was also said that economy is always at full equilibrium, and government intervention is not at all required. And if there is disequilibrium in the, if there is disequilibrium, it is automatically corrected by market forces, that is uh, invisible hand corrects all those forces, that is demand and supply. But what happened in the year 1929, there was a great depression. And if you refer to the history, you will understand that this was a very bad phase of the economy, wherein many people, they lost their job, few of them committed suicide. And it was understood that no, this is not working. It is not that government intervention it is required, and demand and supply, they will not attain to equilibrium considering invisible hand. So then what happened, as we have understood that economic theories, they are not the same all the time. After certain time, there are certain changes, right? Because this deals with the people, this deals with the individuals, and human behavior, it is not the same all the times. So next school of thought came. It is that school of thought is Keynesian, and the time period is late 1930s to mid 1960s. Like the Keynesian principle, J.M. Keynes. The principle is demand creates its own supply. So it is totally opposite to that. Earlier principle was supply creates its own demand, but Keynesian school of thought says that uh, demand creates its own supply. And yes, we already have observed the same thing in COVID times. Do you remember earlier, before COVID, we were not so used to having those face masks, or we can say oxygen cylinders or sanitizers. But during COVID time, there was huge demand for all those things. Even to add on, there is a demand for vaccines. But as there was huge demand, what producers did, they made use of resources very efficiently, and production was attained to that level. So yes, what Keynesian thought, they said it is correct that demand creates its own supply, and we observe this. Then economy can be at full employment, it can be at the stage of underemployment, or it can be at overemployment level. Government needs to intervene. This is the important feature of Keynesian theory, that is government intervention. Government need to intervene to restore the equilibrium. And aggregate supply is perfectly elastic to aggregate demand till full equilibrium is achieved. So this is all about Keynesian thoughts. I have focused on few important points. If you are asked to compare between Keynesian theory and classical theory, I think you can mention some 4 5 points, like who had given this theory. Second is what is the time period. Third thing is related to government intervention, related to demand and supply, related to equilibrium. If you can mention 5 points, I think this is enough. And you can explain that certain times, if you are including examples, that adds value. Then next is, all right, this is okay. Next is monetarism. Monetarism, this theory is given by Milton Friedman. how to maintain economic cycles that is prescribed. Like there are certain policies, role of government, what is the role of government in maintaining policies. And this theory actually focuses only, it focuses only money matters. And debate is what determines aggregate demand. That is debatable. And believing the role of government was to control inflation by controlling money supply. So these are the key points about monetarism. Then we are having a new Keynesian theory. It attempts to add microeconomic foundations of traditional Keynesian economic theories, accept households and firms operate on the basis of rational expectation, and sticky prices and wages is the peculiar feature. Sticky prices, sticky wages, let me explain. The example is, those who are working, for them, salaries are fixed 1 year before or prior, right? Whatever, some people, they may be having appraisals after 6 months. So for them, for 6 months, like let us assume, um, like if the cycle is January to December, then their salaries for next 6 months they are fixed. But if yearly appraisals are there, then their wages they are fixed for entire 1 year well in advance, and they need to stick to it. So that is the meaning of sticky prices, or sticky wages, slow responses to wage and change in performance of company or the economy. This is then neoclassical assumes people they have rational expectations and strive to maximum utility, assumes people act independently on the basis of all the information they can attain. Next is neoclassical theory, that is Robert Lucas has given, and all agents try to maximize their utility and have rational expectation. Supply side economics and future government policies believes that the market clears at all times. And next is Austrian approach. Austrian approach is actually, it is very different and actually usually they say that government intervention is not required. So government rejects this theory because government believes that government intervention is required to restore the situation. So this is least government intervention is expected here. Then individual economics, no government planned economy. It says that whenever individual decisions are taken, they do not take into consideration graph charts, or certain demand supply related things. Every individual has different or unique capability, and market economy should be free. This theory also focuses on, or believes, that money is just a paper or digital currency and it do not have intrinsic value. But basic concept, actually the basic principle is that money should have intrinsic value. No one follows this theory actually, to be very this thing. Nobody follows Austrian approach. Most of the countries they are following Keynesian theory as of now, and this theory is not much popular and government rejects it. But yes, of course, this theory contributed useful theories and explanation related to business cycles, related to implications of capital, interest and opportunity cost. So that is a good part of this Austrian approach. All right, post COVID thinking, you just go through it. And there are certain scenarios which are given to you in the study guide. Please refer to those scenarios and try to answer the questions. And those questions are implied, which means that you are asked to understand first whatever is the concept, that concept, apply that particular concept in this particular scenario, and based on that you may explain your own conclusion, what can be the scene. So please refer to that, this is very important. Economic aggregates, yes, that is change in employment, national income growth rate, um, GDP, inflation, price levels. All right, this circular flow diagram we have already discussed, consumer spending. This is another diagram which deliberately I have included. So please have a look at it. And please do remember, a factor of production are different. Circular flow is different. Full or simple circular flow model is different. And a full circular model is different. In full circular model, you can see here, government, household, firm, and rest of the world is there. And certain times, please do not make a mistake. If four sectors of the model are asked, then please mention these four things. And if four factors of production are asked, then you can mention land, labor, capital, enterprise. So I hope this is clear. aggregate demand, that also we had talked about, so we will not discuss in detail. These are the determinants of aggregate demand, that is consumer wealth, household indebtedness. If households, they are having lot of debts, or if their debts increases, their spending capacity decreases, and it affects demand. If consumer wealth increases, they will spend more, aggregate demand increases. Taxes, if there are if tax rates are increased, then there will be less income in the hands of individuals, and it affects aggregate demand. Consumer expectation, interest rates expectation, foreign income, and exchange rate. These are the determinants. Then supply curve is upward sloping. Then these are the determinants, like price of factors of production, exchange rate, technology, and business taxes. These are the determinants. Now this is short run equilibrium. You can see this like demand and like short run and aggregate demand curve, they are intersecting, and this is long run aggregate supply curve. So at intersection of AD curve with short run aggregate supply curve on the long run aggregate supply curve, this is the diagram. It occurs when real GDP demand is equal to GDP supply. Now economic cycles, they occur. Now economic cycles are, there are ups and downs in the economy is not the same all the times. And you might have observed in 2008 as well that economy was facing recessionary trends, and it happens like certain times, or and after how long there will be recessionary trends, or there will be increase or peak. It totally depends on uh, all the external forces, or it is a conclusive thing of many things in the market. Like initially there is increase, let us say here you can see the trend is increasing, that there will be growth in the market, there will be what we can say, prices will be good, people will be getting employment opportunity, there will be prosperity in the economy, and it will reach up to the this level, that is peak. And then you can see there will be after peak, after reaching to this point, the next point is a downturn. There will be a recessionary trend wherein people will start losing their jobs. Then even stock market also gets affected. Then there are some other things also, like people unemployment rate may increase. So like this, there are recessionary trends. Even there will be even real estate prices, land prices also affects because of recession. Then there will be a what we can say, a least, that economy can reach to the lowest point, that bottom line is the stage of depression. And after this time, this point, there will be, it will start again increasing. When there is repression in the economy, government needs to make certain policies to lift the economy, because it is government's responsibility to to provide job opportunities, to control inflation and all other things. So then it starts again expanding. There will be market, there are certain infrastructure projects which are taken up there, so that even some industries, they are given, they're promoted, some skill development programs are promoted by government, and economy starts picking up. Again it starts to peak, then recession. So how many, how much time is required for reaching to the peak or recession? So of course it depends on market, it is not fixed. So yes, these phases of business cycle, they are important. Please note it down that this economic cycle is important whenever you are studying economics. Now whenever such questions are there, then you may give certain examples, like 2008, whatever crisis happened, it started with that Lehman Brothers, I guess. And if currently, if you're observing such type of trends, you may mention it. It will add value to your answer. And this is the what the purpose of economics is. You can, whatever concepts we are studying, you should be able to apply those concepts um, in the life, or whatever we are observing in the market. So yes, next is inflation. Inflation is the general increase in the price level of goods and services. It means that not only food grains, not only vehicle prices, not only cinema tickets, but there will be increase overall increase in the price level of the goods as well as services. That is what inflation is. And you might have observed that inflation has increased recently after COVID times, like even due to the war, Russia-Ukraine war, inflation has occurred, and the prices of bread, I think they are increased by 18%, if I'm correct. They are increased. Petrol prices, we have also seen that petrol prices are substantially increased. So inflation is general increase in the price level. Causes of inflation are the monetarist approach. There are various approaches: demand pull, cost push, inflation, the structural approach, and the conflict approach. So to focus on this demand pull approach, or demand pull as well as cost push inflation, is demand pull is very few goods, the goods which are available in the economy. Goods are very few, but many people, they are chasing very few goods. That is what is demand pull economics. Like very few people, there are very few goods available. Let us assume there is only one iWatch in the market, but entire BCom students, they want to grab that opportunity to buy it. Then what will happen? The seller will increase the price. Whoever is ready to pay highest prices, goods will be sold to that particular person. But this is not good. The reason being, only rich people, they will get access to the goods. Then what will happen to those who are poor people or middle class people? So this is what demand pull inflation is. Next is cost push inflation. As you know that cost push inflation is every time raw material for production purposes, raw material is required, labor cost increases, real estate prices increases, as a result of which it is not possible to the producer to provide the same goods that can be considering same quantity and same price. It is not possible. So based on it, this prices increases. That is what is cost push inflation. Certain times, cost push inflation, actually cost push inflation is also not good for the economy. It is not always good for the economy, because what happens due to cost push inflation, let us say labor cost increases, right? But certain times that whatever cost push inflation, that prices have increased, if labor costs, wages are increased, it is increased for permanently. So certain times, if that cost push inflation, if prices are increased, it turns into a permanent kind of inflation. Because after, whenever the market situations are normal, and then you cannot reduce the prices, or you cannot reduce the wages of labor. So this is about demand pull and cost push inflation. I have also shared one of the paper cutting from the newspaper, which is related to India. And recently, in the last week only, I came to know about that particular news, and I felt I should share that news with you. And the same thing I have shared with you via portal. So please have a look at it. You may include such type of examples, if the similar kind of question it appears in your examination. The causes of inflation, the monetarist approach, which we first, that is the first one. This is basis on belief that sustained high rates of monetary growth causes high inflation. And this view is the refinement of the quantity theory of money, which in turn based on the equation of that exchange. Um, then structural approach, which says that according to this approach, inflation process is a result of interaction between three sets of factors, that is underlying factors, initiating factors, and propagating factors. Conflict approach says that according to this approach, inflation is a symptom of fundamental disharmony in the society. You know, in this case, what happens if the inflation increases? Politicians, they blame on each other, and this situation may happen. There can be imbalance between the rate of growth and real national income, and rate of growth and the total effective claims of this income. Now next is CPI index, like CPI index and PPI index. CPI index, as we had discussed earlier as well, that certain basket of goods is prepared, like how much inflation has increased within some period of time. And if you remember correctly, I had shared one example with you, like a real time example. Some data is given to you from South African perspective as well as from Indian perspective, just for your understanding. For South Africa, 2016 is considered as base year. I think that is also again changed. So please refer to the correct base year for calculation of CPI. Trend analysis, you know, the calculations are made based on trend analysis, and those prices are considered. If there is increase, base year price is considered as 100, and considering to base year prices, whatever is increase or decrease in the inflation, or increase and decrease in the prices of certain commodities, for that purpose certain categories of goods are there, like food and beverages, then pan, tobacco, as well as intoxicants, or clothing, footwear, housing, fuel and light. And last category is miscellaneous, considering all the prices of the goods like rural and urban area and combined. So all that data is given. Based on that, we can understand that inflation is increasing or decreasing, and at what rate. PPI index, it is related to, this is wholesale price index, and this is related to, you know, as consumers, they are not getting this producer price. That is the reason why um, in most of the countries CPI or consumer price index is followed. Producer index is, it is related to wholesale price or the prices which are given to producers, and certain primary articles, fuel, power, manufacturing or manufactured products, processes, food. So all those categories are considered for producer price index. So as CPI index is followed by many of the countries, I had shared the information related to CPI in detail. The effect of inflation are distribution, economic and social and political. Please refer to it. This, like certain times for distribution effect, you must be knowing that whenever we talk about distribution effect, that is who is getting benefited out of that. So inflation benefits the borrowers because at the expense of creditors, and because purchasing power of money is um, it is reduced as prices are increasing. And economic effect is inflation results in decreased economic growth and higher unemployment. So unemployment increases at the time of inflation, and productive investment is replaced by speculative practices. You know, same thing we have observed when there is inflationary trends, then you know, stock market also we can see there are certain speculative um practices. Then social and political effects are also there. Like whenever prices are increases, then it causes different group of people in the society to blame each other. If there are two different political parties, they will blame each other, and this might lead to political unrest and standard of living deteriorate, because prices are rising and, you know, income is the same. So in such case, you know, standard of living, it is deteriorated. And that is about the effects of inflation. Next is deflation. Deflation is opposite to inflation, where is general decline in the prices of goods and services. Um, now, to conclude here, then whether inflation is good or bad. So we can say that inflation, if that inflation is up to certain level, or we can say single digit inflation, some 3 to 4% increase in the prices, it is good. But if that inflation is increasing, if it is 2 digit inflation, if it is 3 digit inflation, then it is not good for the society. So examples, Zimbabwe's inflation, Venezuela's inflation. So you may relate it to that. So that inflation, it is not good. But yes, if it is up to certain level, that 2 to 4% maximum, that is considered as good inflation, because it adds to economic growth. When inflation is there, there can be, you know, certain times there can be economic growth as well. So considering to deflation, inflation up to certain level, it is considered as beneficial for the economic growth. I hope this is clear. Causes of deflation, you can just read it out. Accelerator theory, it effects happen when an increase in national income results in a proportionately larger size in capital investment spending. In other words, we often see surge in capital spending by business when an economy is growing quite strongly. Consider current demand of medical phase, like COVID example is given here. Like firms, they responded to this growing demand. They increased their capacities and they matched the demand. And they may also choose to meet higher demand by running down their stocks of finished products. So this is about accelerator theory. So you may refer to the study guide for more details. If any note is asked, then you should write all these things with some example. So if you don't want to write this COVID example, then you can find out another example which is similar to that. So this is about accelerator theory, and this chapter is completed. Let us move on to another chapter. I hope you do not have any question, because you have not mentioned anything in the chat box. But yes, please feel free to ask the questions if you are having any. Next is measurement or measuring performance in the economy. So I think only three chapters are remaining, like measuring performance, after that labor market, and the last chapter. Last chapter, I think it is very important, because um, maximum learning outcomes are there. 4 learning outcomes are there. So here we can see, for measuring performance in the economy, 2 learning outcomes are covered in this chapter. Demonstrate an overview of economics and demonstrate knowledge of how markets work. All right. So the performance of an economy is usually assessed in terms of the achievement of economic activities. These objectives can be long term, such as sustainable growth and development, or short term, such as sustainable or sustaination of the economy in response to sudden and unpredictable events called economic shocks. So for economic growth, these are the factors which are important, like political stability, then macroeconomic stability, levels of infrastructure, natural resources, educational standards, saving rates and foreign rate, and barriers to trade. So all these things are important for economic development. And every country wants to develop, and considering that, they try to maintain political stability in the country, certain macroeconomic stability like inflation rate. uh, every country or every government tries to control the inflation rate, develop infrastructure facilities. Even if natural resources are there, those resources are maintained. Education standard, government also makes certain plans so that education standards are increased, saving rates as well as foreign aid. And if there are barriers to trade, those trade barriers to trade, certain times those barriers are created, certain times those barriers are removed. Like uh, after 1991, you might have observed that whenever free trade policy is adopted after globalization, that LPG policy, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, due to that, uh, free trade policies are there. So countries can trade freely amongst each other. But yes, there are certain restrictions which are imposed by home country or domestic country, um, to reduce certain certain inputs, that is just for the benefit of the home producers. So that also we are going to discuss in detail. Determinants of economic growth, these are human resources, natural resources, technology and innovation, and capital formation. Economic growth post COVID period, you just need to answer these 2 questions. And GDP is very important. Whenever you are studying economics, you must understand what GDP means. So GDP is a market value of final goods and services produced within a country in a given period. So generally it is 1 year time period. Within 1 year time period, what is the market price of final goods and services that is taken into consideration? This definition has 4 parts, namely market value, final goods, services produced within a country and given period. So this is about GDP. Methods to calculate GDP. There are 2 methods: expenditure approach and second is income approach. As per expenditure approach, C plus I plus G X minus M, which means that consumption expenditure plus investments plus government plus X minus M is export minus imports. So by calculating by this way, this is expenditure approach, and income approach is summing the incomes that firms pay households for the services of factors of production they hire. That is wages for labor, interest for capital, for for land, rent is paid, so rent for land, and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship will get profit, so profit for entrepreneurship. So these are the methods of calculating GDP. Now GDP is a trend or economic growth is calculated like GDP plus GDP1 or divided by GDP1. Now, there are certain economic indicators. Some are pro-cyclic, which means as they move in the same direction as the economy. There some counter-cyclic are there, like they move in the opposite direction. Then there are certain leading indicators, like this is related to manufacturing industries. Then lagging indicators, like to understand the effect, certain time is required, or indicators they do not change the direction for a few months, and some are coincident, that indicators move at the same pace as the economy. Then nominal GDP and real GDP, we will be discussing example. uh, Nominal GDP is a measure of the total quantity of goods and services of the economy, or the economy is producing, that is affected by price changes and those goods and services. Real GDP is a measure the total quantity of goods and services in the economy is producing, that is not affected by price. So which price is taken into consideration then? Let's see. Yes, now this example is visible to you. Gross domestic product, nominal GDP and real GDP. We will be discussing about it. You can see here the data for 2016, 17 and 18 is given. Price of hot dog and price of burger is given, as well. Quantities are also mentioned. You can see here in first example, for calculating nominal GDP, please understand, for calculating nominal GDP, the prices which are prices for that particular year are taken into consideration. Like for 2016, prices are 123, quantities are 100, 150 and 200. So prices and quantity, they are multiplied. So 2016 final price is 100 for hot dog. Then for 2017, price is increased, quantity is also increased. So 2 rands multiplied by 150, answer is 300. And for 2018, 3 rands multiplied by 200, answer is 600. Now, same thing for burger, and final answers are given here like 100, 300 and 600. And both the price and both the amounts, 100 and 100, nominal GDP is 200. Then you can see for 2017, 300 plus 300, total amount is mentioned here. And lastly, for 2018, the amount of hot dog and burger is taken into consideration, 600 plus 600. And final answer is 1200. So this is about, like this, we can calculate nominal GDP for the year. To calculate real GDP, you can see the method is different. Like rand 1, whatever is the price for the first year, that is considered for the rest of the years. You can see rand 1 is the price for 2016. For calculation of 17 and 18, the same price is taken into consideration. Like for that is the reason why for 2016, the price of hot dog is 100, 17 it is 150, and 18 it is 200. Similarly, for the calculation of burger prices, same price of 2016 is taken into consideration for the quantities 50, 100 and 150. So there is no change in the price. The prices of the first year are taken into consideration. Real time prices, that is this 17 and 18, they are not taken into consideration. And finally, real GDP is calculated as 200, 300 and 500. Next way is GDP deflator. GDP deflator, it is very simple. Nominal GDP divided by real GDP multiplied by 100, you will get GDP deflator. And for the first year, it will always be 100, because for the first year, If you calculate by nominal GDP or real GDP, it will be the same only. So here 200 divided by 200 multiplied by 100, it is always 100. For 2017, you can see, you can go back and you can understand that our nominal GDP was 600, real GDP is 350, and multiplied by 100, we got 171. And for 2018, it is 1200, 1200 rands divided by 500 rands, multiplied by 100, we got 240. So this is how we have calculated by nominal GDP we have understood, real GDP we have understood, and third method is GDP deflator. So we have discussed all the methods of GDP here. Now, calculation of economic growth, that is period 2 minus period 1 divided by period 1. So if we want to calculate the growth, we can use the same formula like current year, previous year divided by previous year and multiplied by 100, we will understand what is the economic growth. Uses of GDP as it is the standard of living over time, that can be understood. Business cycles are understood or they can be traced. And limitations of GDP are if different currencies are there, that is a limitation. And purchasing power parity, purchasing power parity is, it is related to different countries, they are having different prices. So it is not that, you know, you may get a job opportunity, let us assume in US. Okay. And to take an example, I really don't know what is the general salary or minimum salary related things, but let us assume if in South Africa, if you are getting 50,000 rands per month, and if you will get a salary, let us assume in US, if you have got an opportunity to go and work, and if you are getting, uh, let us say, 1 lakh 1 lakh rands. That is, of course, after converting into the dollar to rands. So, will it be profitable for you or not? Will you be able to save money or not? That will totally depend on purchasing power parity, because whatever may be the cost of burger, whatever may be the cost of pizza in South Africa, definitely if you go to US, the prices are going to increase. And by what percentage, what is the difference, what is so you need to understand purchasing power parity, and based on that you will understand that whether it is beneficial for you to accept the offer of, you know, though your salary will get increased by 100%, but of course it is related to your own currency. But if you go to US, their prices, their you know, your the required daily need products, what is the cost of that, what is the cost of living, everything is understood from purchasing power parity. And that is the reason why purchasing, you know, understanding purchasing power parity is important. But yes, as we are discussing just about the limitation, we are not discussing purchasing power parity in detail. Limitations of real GDP. Firstly, the real GDP, okay, GDP is one country must be converted into the same currency unit as GDP of the another country, okay. And secondly, goods and services in both the countries must be valued in the same prices, like PPP, that is purchasing power parity, how I had discussed. We had discussed this. Now, globalization. See, the impact of globalization on South Africa, there are certain advantages, there are certain disadvantages. So you can find out what are the advantages, what is the effect of globalization on South Africa or the country wherein you are staying. You can understand the differences. Then due to globalization, yes, you know, technology advancements are there. Then multinational companies are available everywhere, you know, every it is, there are no restrictions actually, geographical boundaries are not there. People, they get an opportunity to work for multinational companies. Lower tariffs, then improved transportation facilities, communication facilities have improved, labor mobility is possible, and capital mobility is also possible. So these are all the features of globalization or important characteristics. Now, impact. What is the impact of globalization? That is also important. You can relate it to South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, or some other parts of the countries. Increased trade. There is a greater choice of goods. Earlier, you might be having few brands, but as of now, you have multiple brands available and you can choose out of the available brands. Then greater competition, lower prices, competition is, there is huge competition, and as a result of which prices, the consumers, who is benefited, consumers are benefited because they can get the goods at lower prices. And even the online shopping has also added to it, that you can compare the prices from Amazon, from Meesho, or from some other apps, and you can then make a buying decision. Economies of scale, economies of, what is economies of scale, that we have discussed in detail, that more efficient production is possible. Then increased capital and labor mobility. Tax avoidance, tax avoidance is easier. Tax avoidance is people may try to avoid paying taxes, and that can be, it is not good for the economy. Like government, what is the source of revenue for the government? That is taxes. And if some people, if they're avoiding to pay taxes, then it is not good. Structural unemployment, that is from shift, yes, from shifting sectors, that is structural unemployment can be there. Then monopoly power of multinationals. Multinationals, they may have monopoly power. This is the impact. Globalization. So the definition of globalization, you can please go through it. And impact of globalization, we have already discussed. These are the questions. Please refer to these questions. Try to answer it. Whatever, there are certain links which are given in your study guide. Please go through that links. It will help you to understand the subject and relate it to the real time. So this, please refer to it. Next important thing is protectionism. Now, what is protectionism? That government policies that restrict international trade and help economic industries. Next is uh, protectionist policies that implemented to improve economic activity within the domestic economy, but can also be implemented for safety and um, quality concerns. So why protectionism is required? Like most of the population uses imported goods. If you understand, or if you find out what all imported products you are using, you will find out that the toothpaste which you are using, it is imported. The mobile phone, those, I don't know which brand you are using. If you're using iPhone, it is imported. Then if you're using certain cosmetics, you are using, those cosmetics are imported. So most of the population, they are using imported goods, from talcum powder, cosmetics, mobile, restaurant chains, cars, or cake. We are using imported product. So if these items, if they're not available in the country, then can our life be stopped or our routine will be affected? No, it will not happen. So if people, if they are using imported goods all the time, then what will happen? People will be consumers and they will not be producers. And the situation is not good for the country because the flow of money will be going to the other countries. So to protect home country from the foreign companies or from the foreign competition, and to promote healthy competition, protectionism, it is introduced. And government tries, these are the tools. The question may be asked to you, what are the tools to influence international trade or for protectionism? Like first is tariff. There are certain tariffs, high tariffs, like imported goods. For example, let us assume that a wine bottle is available for 100 rands in South Africa. Whenever it comes to India, it is the import duty, or let us say tariff, which is there, which is 100% tariff. So those imported goods will become expensive, and will domestic goods, they will be in comparison, they will be cheaper, so that domestic producers, they will get benefit. So like the tariffs are there, import quotas are there. Certain times some quotas are decided by the government whenever import goods are imported. Some other import barriers are there, like certain other than taxation or other than tariffs, certain other barriers can be created. And whenever exports are done, whenever home country is exporting the goods, certain subsidies are given, and that helps actually home country to increase exports, and that is beneficial for any home country, which we can say. And the objective of protectionism is better home production. domestic manufacturers Domestic manufacturers, they can earn well, and it will add to the GDP. Like, instead of selling potato, instead of exporting potatoes, home producers, they are motivated that they can make chips, and then they can sell it by putting in the packets. So motivate domestic production, like and due to all those things, um, domestic country or people from domestic country, they will get job opportunities, because most the industries are set up, and unemployment, it can be reduced, standard of living will increase, and there will be a development in the economy. So this is all about protectionism. Yes, we are done with this chapter. I hope all well. And considering labor market, I think labor market also you have understood it well. There are three learning outcomes under for this particular chapter. So consider this chapter as important. Understand key economic terminologies and concepts. Then evaluate principles of macroeconomic. I'm sorry, there are yes. And third is demonstrate knowledge of how markets work. So these are the learning outcomes. In this chapter, we have understood what is labor. And if you remember correctly, we had discussed about one example, that is a football player, uh, Leonard. No, yes, it is. Which example we had discussed? Is it Messi or Ronaldo? I think we discussed both the examples, because few of the students, they are fan of Ronaldo, like me, and some of the students, they are fan of Messi. So we discussed about that example, and we related that actually to the labor market. So what exactly is required? What influences the labor market? So that is a skill. If there is a shortage of certain skills, then that is reflected in the labor market. So those who are getting paid higher salaries or higher wages, it is because of the reason being, they are having extra kind of, or we can say outstanding skill sets. Because of that, they are getting paid very high wages. And that is the reason why we had discussed about Ronaldo and Messi's case as one of the examples. So, yes, construction, what is labor, that we had discussed. Then, yes, this consider this as very important. Law of demand, labor market, and law of demand. Like when wage rate increases, or labor demand for labor drops when wage rate increases, then demand falls when price of the firms or output decreases, the price of substitute of labor, it falls, price of a complement of labor rises, and new technology or new capital decreases the marginal product of the labor. And about the rises, when the demand for labor rises, that also it is when wage rate decreases, or when automation becomes very expensive, then prices of complement labor falls, or the price of substitute for labor rises. So these are all uh, things related to labor market or law of demand. Considering labor market, you can also please make a note that the difference between goods and labor market, that is also important. Please go through that. Now, labor productivity is calculated in the hours produced or hourly output of country's economy. Then charts and volumes or real gross GDP, it is taken into consideration. And increase in labor productivity depends upon physical capital, technology, and human capital. All right. These are certain important things, like measuring labor productivity. Why it is important to measure labor productivity? Because it is directly linked to improved standard of living, then short term and cyclical changes in the economy, and it increases increases in output. Next is labor productivity policies, that is investment in physical capital, quality of education. That is the reason why certain times you might have observed that firms or companies, they promote that their employees should get a higher education and they sponsor for it, like certain project management related things, certain people from data related things, they are asked to go for certain qualifications and they are supported. The reason being that is to increase the quality of the manpower. Due to education, they will add value to the company, as well as certain training facilities are given to labor. Again, next is technological progress. So these are certain labor productive policies. Next, specialization is important. Specialization occurs when workers are assigned specific tasks within a production process, and workers therefore require less training. If specialization is done, then they require less training and they will be very efficient. This leads to increase in productivity, profits will increase, and firms benefit from economies of scale. Why? Because lower average cost with increased outputs will increase, and their cost, which are required for that, it will be in that will be the cost required will be lower, and there will efficiency will be increased. So that is the advantage of specialization. Rate of unemployment in the countries that we had already discussed. Now you can focus on just find out the data of employment or unemployment data. What are the recent trends, so that you can find out, so that you can include that data whenever you are writing your answers. Types of unemployment that we have already discussed. You can understand this frictional unemployment. Unemployment is people voluntarily they leave their jobs, and this is actually a short-term phenomenon. After some period of time, they may find another job opportunity and they will be employed again. Cyclical unemployment, that is there are certain recessionary trends in the market, due to which there can be a cyclical unemployment. You may relate it with there are certain some IT sectors which are doing downsizing. So you can relate the cyclical unemployment with it. Institutional unemployment, that is long term in nature, or certain permanent automation. That can be permanent. There can be permanent automation in the institutes, like government policies may change. Certain minimum wage floors are high minimum wage floor can be that policy can be given by government. Certain generous social benefit programs are there, or certain times high unionization may happen, and because of which some people, industries, they may feel that it is better to make automation rather than labor. So that is institutional unemployment. And next is structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is due to technological changes. People or some of the job profiles, they are eliminated. For example, telegram. Many years back, people used to send telegram, but as of now we are having email facility, we are having WhatsApp, we are having Instagram. So communication is become very easy. So that telegram facility, which was available few many years back, it is obsolete now. So this is about types of unemployment types. This is please read and understand all the types, and if such question comes in your examination, please mention one example each. Demand and supply of labor, yes, that we have determinants. We will just discuss the determinants. That is job related. There can be some job related differences, worker related differences, differences related to market structure, and differences as a result of discrimination. Like there can be a gender bias, like male will get some salary, female employee will get certain salary. Such type of determinants of wages can be there. But government focuses on a same wage policy. Like if whoever is there for some particular level, for some particular, what we can say, job, similar or equal opportunity should be given. And differences in productivity, yes, differences in based on differences in productivity, there can be certain um, wages can be different. if any the difference can be skilled labor will be paid different level of salary, and who is a semi-skilled or unskilled labor, they will get different salary or wages, we should say actually, because salary term is not used in economics. They mention wages. Like Peter, do you want to say something? You have unmuted. I think it was technical glitch. Okay. All right. Trade unions, we have discussed the role of trade union, that is protecting and improving life's living standard, protecting workers, promoting improvement of worker condition, workplace training and education, it should be promoted, and accumulation of human capital and protection of pension rights. So these are all certain main role of trade unions. There are certain advantages as well, like they can protect the workers from, there can be some exploitation, then trade unions can protect them, uphold health and safety regulations, they can follow certain rules or law. They trade unions can force the company to follow all the rules and regulations, like Factories Act, Minimum Wages Act, Bonus Act, Provident Fund Act, and others. Representation of workers, protection from exploitation, and help to implement new working practices. These are the advantages. Disadvantages are also mentioned. Disequilibrium in unemployment may discourage firms um, from investing and creating unemployment, because there certain times there can be a pressure of trade unions on the firms, and if they are forcing for the policies which are not actually genuine, or the policies which are not really required, then trade unions strike. If they go on strike, there can be lot of uh, output can be decreased, production can be decreased, and uh, firms may face certain losses. Wage inflation, it may happen. These are the disadvantages. If you remember, we had discussed one of the case related to Maruti Udyog Limited. The same case I have already posted on your student portal. So that can be one of the reasons why some of the organizations, they do not promote uh, unionism in the firms. So yes, this is about uh, Miss Maruti Suzuki. Done. We are done with this chapter, and we are on the last chapter. In my opinion, the last chapter is very, very important, because it is covering 4 learning outcomes, or learning outcomes. Understand key economic terminologies and concepts. I think this is the same for many of the chapters which we had discussed. Then evaluate principles of macroeconomics, demonstrate knowledge of how markets work, and discuss role of government in the economy. So I can see only 5 minutes are left, but we will finish off this chapter, because I feel that this chapter is very important. And after completing this chapter, I need next 5 minutes to focus on few important points related to your examination, and I feel it will definitely help you whenever you will be writing your examination. So so the session, I think it will be extended for next 15 to 20 minutes maximum. So please, I hope it is fine with you. Okay, macroeconomic policy. Now, when we are talking about macroeconomic policy, this is related to fiscal policy and monetary policy. The goal of any economy is it is to provide stable economic environment and conducive to fostering strong and sustainable economic growth, wherein new jobs are created, unemployment should be reduced, there should be infrastructural development, education, living standard of people should be high, or it should be improved. So these are all the goals. And the pillars of macroeconomic policy are fiscal policy, monetary policy, and exchange rate policy. So let us discuss one by one. Fiscal policy is the means by which a government adjusts its spending level and tax rates to monitor and influence nation's economy. Sister strategy is monetary policy. So to focus on actually this fiscal policy, you can understand there are mainly there are or as we had discussed, objectives like to maintain and achieve full employment, mobilize countries resources efficiently, then achieve balanced development in the regions, in various regions. So these are the objectives, or these are some of the objectives of actually fiscal policy. Now, how this fiscal policy is implemented. So there are majorly there are two things. One is automatic fiscal policy, and the other is discretionary fiscal policy. I'll repeat. First is automatic fiscal policy, and second is discretionary fiscal policy. Automatic fiscal policy is, it is change in fiscal policy that is triggered by state of the economy. State of the economy means there can be different trends in the economy, like if fall in income, or if there are recessionary trends, it triggers automatically decrease in tax revenue. Like, so there are certain tax slabs, as you know, and if there is decrease in income of individuals, decrease in income of citizens, it will lead to less income or decrease in the tax revenue to the government. And that is the reason why this is a type of fiscal policy which is adjusted automatically. Second is discretionary fiscal policy. This is a policy action that is initiated by the government. Government on its own needs to make certain efforts uh, for implementing this policy. It requires deliberate change in tax law, or some spending programs, as fiscal policy deals with certain tax structures and spendings. And example, like certain times tax rates are cut and increase in defense spending. Certain times defense spendings are increased, or certain times defense spendings. Some certain um, required changes are done in defense spending. Based on that, this is a part of this can be considered as example of discretionary fiscal policy. Whereas automatic fiscal policy, automatic fiscal policy is due to certain trends in the economy. It will get changed automatically, like government revenue will reduce if there are recessionary trends, because people, if people will decrease, the income of people is decreased, then obviously their taxes are reduced, or they will not pay that much taxes. And if inflationary trends are there, then automatically earnings will increase, and they will have to pay taxes to the government, or increased taxes to the government. Now, automatic fiscal policy is possible only in simple economy, but in modern world, most of the countries, they have complicated economic issues, and discretionary fiscal policies are considered as very effective. So, as under discretionary fiscal policy, again, there are two things. First is an expansionary fiscal policy. It is increase in government expenditure on goods and services, or decrease in net taxes. I'll repeat: increase in government expenditure on goods and services, and decrease in net taxes. This policy is used when country faces recession. When there are recessionary trends, then government deliberately makes a certain decisions, so that there will be growth in the economy, or there will be money can be infused in the economy. The money is injected in the economy, and there will be growth in the economy. And fiscal policy tools, they are used to control falling macroeconomic variables and stimulate growth of these variables. Another type is contractionary fiscal policy. It is a decrease in government expenditure. Government expenditure is decreased on goods and services, and increase in net taxes. Taxes are increased and government expenditure is reduced. This policy is used to control inflationary tendencies of the economy, and thus control inflation and simultaneously prevent fall in growth rate of the economy. And there are certain tools for fiscal policy as well, like public revenue, public expenditure, public debt, or public borrowing. So these are the things related to fiscal policy. You can understand fiscal policy uh, changes which are happened with reference to, with special reference to South Africa, by referring to certain sources. You may go to government websites and you will understand about economic growth rate, what are fiscal decisions are taken for infrastructure development. There can be certain sanctions which are done. So please refer to that. for monetary policy. Now another monitor as okay, let me mention fiscal policy tools. They are for the long term purposes, and or for long term for managing inflation. Fiscal policy tools are used, and monetary policy tools. Yes, thank you, Rapid. Monetary policy tools, they are there for the short term period, and monetary SARB, that is South African Reserve Bank, or any reserve bank of the country, has authority to implement monetary policy in the country. And for managing inflation at a short term or short span, this monetary policy changes are done. And if you can understand that for Nigeria, there can be a central bank. For US, a Federal Reserve is a central bank. For India, Reserve Bank of India is the central bank. So those banks, they have authority to set monetary policy. Monetary policy decisions are implemented by changing cash rate, um, interest rate, that is interest rate on overnight loans, and cash rate is determined by money market by forces of supply and demand for overnight funds. These are the three instruments. Please, again, 5-star here. Which are the instruments of monetary policy? Which are the instruments used by South African Reserve Bank for managing what we can say inflation or money flow? So here you can understand that there are three things: accommodation policy, open market policy, and other, what we
Hello,
can say,
good
other
morning.
instruments. Yes.
Good morning, ma.
Good morning. Tell me.
Well done. I'm enjoying your revision class.
Thank you. Thank you so
Please,
much.
is it? You're welcome, ma. Is it always advisable to use graphical illustration when answering questions in economics?
Yes, it is actually, graph is the integral part of economics, and that is the reason why we focus on, if you mention the graphs in your answers, that will add value. So it will show us that you have understood that particular topic in depth, and
Oh,
ultimately it will result in, getting more numbers.
okay. Okay. I noticed that questions in economics are usually twisted. Some appears like parables, as in some questions are like parables. I don't know why it's always like that. Why can't they just go straight and tell us this is what they want us to do and we'll just easily and quickly answer the question? Like the assignment, it took me a lot of time. I couldn't even finish it.
I agree. I agree. Actually, whatever you said is right. Even some other student also, I don't remember the name. I'm so sorry. Mentioned that assignment. It took a lot of time for you to complete the assignment. But what I would like to request is, can we please, complete our revision part first, and after that we will discuss. And I will give you some techniques how effectively you can write in your examination.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Thank you. So there are hardly 5-6 slides which are we need to discuss on those slides, and after that we will carry on examination related discussion, and whatever queries you are having, you are free to ask.
Okay,
Let us
no
move
problem.
on. Yes, thank you.
All
Let
right,
us
let's
listen.
go back to class.
So instruments of monetary policy are accommodation policy, open market policy, and uh, other instruments. So if you can understand here, accommodation, as under all these policies, first thing is bank rates are like interest rates are changed. Certain times, if the economy is experiencing certain recessionary trends, then at that time, what happens? To inject the flow, or people, there should be flow in the market, and that is the reason why interest rates are decreased. So you may relate it to, let us say, I guess 2008. That is, I think, the recent recession which we had observed. So in 2008, all the countries, they were having less, or interest rates were reduced at that time. And whenever there are inflationary trends, then to to minimize or to control the flow of money in the market, interest rates are increased. There are certain open market operations like open market operations are conducted by the Reserve Bank by way of sale or purchase of government securities, that is GSEC, that is government securities, and money supply that is adjusted. So too much supply of money in the market, it will lead to inflationary situation, as well as if money supply is very less, that is also not good. So that is the reason why money supply in the market is controlled by central bank of the country, and the central bank sells government securities to suck off liquidity from the system and buys back government securities to infuse the liquidity into the market. So these are the that what we can say OMO, that open market operation or open market policy. It is the way to manage flow of money in the market, because we also have seen, if you remember, in case of Zimbabwe's case, there was lot of supply of money. So as money was huge, it the economy observed inflationary trends, and there was hyperinflation. And after that, so many changes need to be done and to restore the situation. So these operations are often conducted on day-to-day basis in the manner that balances inflation while helping banks continue to lend. And the central bank uses OMO, that is open market operations or open market policy, along with other monetary policy tools like repo rate. You can refer to the repo rate for South Africa. Reverse repo rate. Repo rate is certain times, banks, they get loans from central bank, and the rate at which they are expected uh, to pay interest, that is repo rate. Then cash reserve requirements are also there. So it is not that whatever funds which are whatever deposits are taken by banks or commercial banks, they can give that entire amount as a loan. They need to maintain certain reserve requirements. Then certain statutory liquidity ratios they need to maintain to adjust the quantum and price of money in the system. So this is all about OMO. There are certain other instruments as well. So these other instruments, in study guide, only names are mentioned, but I would like to discuss this in detail because this is helpful for you. And I feel this is important question: instruments of monetary policy, fiscal policy, monetary policy, and exchange rate. These three things I feel they are important when we are studying macroeconomics. First is margin requirements. It refers to difference between the securities offered and amount borrowed by the banks. Margin against a particular security is decreased or increased in order to encourage or discourage the flow of credit to a particular sector. That is about margin requirement. Then consumer credit regulation as other instrument. One is consumer credit regulation. This refers to issuing rules regarding down payment and maximum maturities for installation or for installment credit purchases of goods. There are certain guidelines which are given by central bank to all the commercial banks, and they need to follow all those guidelines. That can be those guidelines are written by some oral instructions are given, certain written statements are given, some appeals are there, some guidelines, some warnings are there by central bank to the commercial banks. Next is rationing of credit, that is central bank controls credit guarantee allocated by commercial banks. There is one more thing which is mentioned in your study guide as well, that is moral suasion. So moral suasion is under this central bank, that is SARB, issues periodical letters to the banks to exercise control over the credit. So they want to maintain, they want to control the credit, and for that purpose, certain periodically certain letters are issued to commercial banks. Such periodical letters act as reminder to the banking sector to follow credit control norms. And lastly, for other instruments, it is direct action. Actually, it is extreme step. In general, such steps are not taken by a central bank. It involves refusal by central bank to extend credit facilities. Some of the banks they are asked, stop. You are not allowed to extend any credit to the customers. Denial of permission to open new branches, and some other things are done just in case banks are not following the directions. you know, central bank is a regulator in banking industry. Like for stock exchanges, their regulator is some other not other body is a regulator. So like that, South African Reserve Bank is a regulator for all the banks which are available in South Africa. And if they feel that any of the bank is not working as per the guidelines, then they are said that, stop, you are not allowed to do this, and the permission may not be granted for opening of new branches. And that is the reason why, central bank has all the authority to intervene in the operations of all commercial banks, because it is important. We also have seen some of the examples as well, like in India recently, I think last year, there was one of the banks, that is Lakshmi Vilas Bank, which had to close down uh, as there was some irregularities happening in the bank. And lastly, what happened? The bank was taken over by another bank. So yes, this is about other instruments. I hope all these instruments are clear to you. Then money supply, price level, inflation targeting. Please read it carefully. International trade, new trade theory. Okay, okay, international trade, as you know that none of the country is self-sufficient, and that is the reason why all the countries are dependent on each other. Like for example, a few years back, there was due to climatic conditions, certain pulses. There was shortage of pulses in India, and India had to import pulses from other countries. So, like that, none of the country is self-sufficient for certain goods and services. We need to depend on another each or other countries. If you find out, if you will get access to see import and exports of South Africa, you will understand that South Africa is also importing, many goods, as well as exporting so many goods to different countries. And to name a few, I guess South Africa has a very good resources for the diamonds, and which other countries may not be having. Even gold mines are also in South Africa. Gold mines are also famous, or you are having a very good stock of gold, which we can say. Uh, and similarly, if we take example of India, India is good in production of rice, or certain sugar, or certain spices. So like that, countries, they are dependent for all those things on each other. So yes, this is about international trade. Now exchange rate. For exchange rate, there are certain systems. For exchange rate, three things are important. Like peg rate system is there, or um, another thing is that demand and supply. These are the two forces which are managing actually the price. Like for example, let us take current price. Let us assume that to get $1, uh, we need to pay 17 rands. So that is the exchange rate. I'm sure that that exchange rate. You are very much comfortable with calculation or understanding those exchange rates. And there are various ways actually. Whenever to get a foreign currency, like whenever tourists are traveling to South Africa, they need to carry this currency. Then even stock market people are trading with those currencies. So there are many options. And next is the price of one currency in terms of another, that is 17 rands to dollar. Direct quote and indirect quote. These are the two things. Like first, direct quote is to get $1, we need to pay 17 rands. But of course, indirect quote can be for dollar, it is 1 rand. For them, it will be 0 point something. That direct and indirect, 1 divided by 17, whatever will be the answer. So that will be the quote. One is direct quote and another is indirect quote. This is just for your information. Increase in the value of currency is appreciation. So value of currency should be increased, and that is, of course, that depends on so many factors. And decrease in the value of currency, that is depreciation. And every country wants that the value of the currency, it should be maintained. And usually or generally, it is related with the currency which is traded, which is accepted by all the countries. That is dollar. The reason being, I think, oil barrels, they are also traded in dollars only, and that is the reason why when there is or whenever we discuss with exchange rate transactions, and if they are usually we compare it with dollar prices. Now, when we talk about this exchange policy, there are three things which are important. On these 3 points, I will be sharing some of the extra reading material for you. I think this will help you. Like market forces like demand and supply, so demand for currencies and supply for the currencies. Considering that exchange rate is determined. Second is managed float, that is flexible exchange rate, or like fixed exchange rate and flexible exchange rate. These are the two rates. And fixed exchange rate is determined by government rate. It is fixed in terms of external standards like gold, silver, or any other precious metal or any other currency pegging. That is parity value of the currency. And another is flexible exchange rate. That is market forces, as we had discussed. That is demand and supply. That is managed exchange rate. Third is that use interest rates. That is a third thing. And there are certain times actually managed exchange rate is followed for determining exchange rate policy. Like that is the combination of fixed and uh, flexible exchange rate. Certain times, if it is understood that exchange rates they are not manageable, then central bank intervenes to manage the situation. So, just for your information, I would like to mention here, if you understand about exchange rates, for getting $1 in rand, we need to pay 17 rands. But if you consider about Indian currency, we need to pay approximately 80 rupees to get $1. And yes, that is what we are observing currently, and there is impact of this on many other things like petrol prices. They are increased a lot. So like that, you can also mention such certain things whenever you are explaining such points. Now the last point, we are at the last sub point to discuss, that is terms of trade, the ratio between terms of trade, um, that is export price index as well as import price index. So TOT, that is terms of trade, that is total value of country's exports. Earning depend on the volume or quantity of export and the prices of the exports. So total value of country's imports depends on volume of imports and prices of imports. So let us take example. When export prices decline, a greater volume of exports has to be produced. So when prices are decreasing, to maintain that much or total amount, then we need to increase the quantity. Then only that level can be attained, and sell merely to keep the total earning for keeping this keeping the total earnings constant. Quantity can be increased. To take an example, I think the same example is given in your book, uh, which is a reference book. You can refer to it earlier. Exports are, let us see, 3 units. Price is 300. That is, total is 300. Price is 100. So 100 multiplied by 3, it is 300. And now, number of units which are exported, only 2 units are exported, and if price is 100, then there will be a problem of balance of payment. That will be, which means exports will be less than imports. And if imports are 300 only, like 300 quantity or 300 units, or let us 3 units multiplied by 100 is the price, that is 300. And the quantity of exports need to be increasing because price is decreased. Like as the price is decreased, which means the total earnings will decrease. So to manage the situation, total quantity can be increased to earn sufficient foreign exchange. And getting foreign exchange is very important. Every country should have foreign exchange, and it will so that there won't be a problem of balance of payment. Then there are actually certain some there is one more important thing, that is absolute advantage and comparative advantage, which is also important. I think, let me see whether I have mentioned it here or not. Yes, absolute advantage and comparative advantage, these two concepts are also very important. Absolute advantage is compared to two countries, like let us take example of India and South Africa. India can, with the help of resources, India can uh, manufacture rice in more quantities with less resources. And that is, let us take in case of South Africa, they can manufacture jute. Just this is hypothetical example. So that there can be uh, a trade between India and South Africa, so that as India is good at manufacturing or producing rice, they can focus on that. Whereas South Africa is better in producing of jute, they can focus on jute, and both the countries they can trade. Like India can import jute, and South Africa can import rice. So this is how absolute is. This is the example of absolute advantage. Then there can be comparative advantage. This may happen that one of the country, let us assume South Africa can be good at rice as well as jute product, but then there can be a possibility that there may not be a trade between India and South Africa. But it is not like that. Comparatively, at whichever product they are good at, like South Africa will focus on that product, and for the other product, South Africa may depend on other countries for the product, for which comparatively uh, they are not good at. Like they will focus on the product which at which they are very good at. Like let us take example of rice, and for other products they can dependent or they can import the other product, for which they will take the advantage of opportunity cost. So yes, this is all from my side. We have completed entire revision, and I think I have focused on all the important aspects. I have mentioned all the important aspects in detail. Um, so yes, this is all. Now, can if you are having any questions, please go ahead, and after that we can have 5 minutes discussion on how to write examination and some important points related to your examination. So I think yes. Um, Someone had a question related to economics. It is, as it is a technical subject, and I don't remember the name. I'm so sorry for that. So as the question was, actually the subject is technical in nature, it takes a lot of time to to write your answers. Zenele, please go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Yalgi. Thank you so much. Now, I was just asking that can you kindly send me the slides when we are done with class so I can share it with the students?
Yes, definitely, Zenali. I will share all the slides with you so that you can share it with the students, and the students will be benefited out of those slides. Also, I will share some important information related to exchange rate and other things, so that it will be helpful for the students considering their examinations. Yes, thank you.
All right.
All
Thank you
right,
so
thank you
much.
so much. So I was talking about, next, if you are not having any queries, I will take next 5 minutes uh, for examination related discussion only. So as you know, there was Flora, please go ahead. I can see you have raised the hand.
Thank you, Doc. I just want to ask, some of our laptops don't have apps to draw the graphs, the demand and the PPC graphs. So for the assignment, I just manually draw on paper, take a photo, and upload for the assignment purposes. I just want to check if it's acceptable
Yes, it is
for the
acceptable.
exam.
Yes, thank you, Flora. It is acceptable. Certain times, actually, you may not have access, or certain times your system do not support for all PPF and other graphs. So in such scenario, you can write or you can draw the graph using manually. You can click the photo, you can upload. First way, but yes, please, whenever you are attaching those graphs, please make sure that horizontal axis, name it, quantity or price, whatever variables are there, please mention those variables. And then if there are important points, like one point will be inside the graph, highlight that point. There will be another point outside the graph, unattainable. So please mention all those things. This will help you to gain more numbers or more marks. And I think someone had a question that economics is a technical subject, and you need lot of things. There are a lot of things to mention, and because of which time can be a constraint whenever you will be writing an examination. And yes, it is observed that many students they struggle to complete the assignment because there are so many things. But yes, this is a subject which is related to your lives, right? So though you have not formally studied the subject previously, but this subject is related to your life. So considering your examination, what I would like to suggest is you can um, what you can do is consider the time slot for the paper. Like if it is 2 hours, then divide the time considering various questions. And if for one question, if there are 15 minutes, so make sure that in 15 minutes you will be finish off answering that particular question. And additionally, in addition to that, if you will understand that you are falling short of time while answering the questions, then what you can do is you can just mention the bullet points, write 1 or 2 lines about it. Then it will help. But try to complete your uh, entire examination. Please do not leave any question blank. This is my first request to you. Second request is consider your examination. I think there are 28 days left. I'm not, I have not actually calculated, but I think there are approximately 28 days left for your examination. And we are having, let us assume we are having 7 chapters. Yes, there are 7 chapters. Divide the chapters considering, let us see, 28 days, leave the last day. So if you are having, let us assume, 1 day for revision, then you can consider 26 days and 7 chapters. Divide the days and start working on economics, so that you will understand how to use keywords in your answers. And one chapter, all the important points, focus on that. Um it will help you to be confident at the time of your examination, because entirely whatever is expected in your examination, it is from study guide. So whatever is given your study guide, as I told you, it is beautifully prepared. So go through the study guide. So from the study guide, if you understand that is one of the concept, you need to understand more on it, go to the reference book. There are certain links which are provided in your study guide. So go to that links. It will definitely help you to relate the subject or relate the concept in real life scenarios. And whenever you are writing your examination, the expected pattern is you can write the concept. If that concept is related to life, you can write certain examples. And after that, if you observe some data, like as I told you, go to uh, SARB, that is South African Reserve Bank website, get certain data about repo rate and other things. If you include that data in your answer, then your answer will be very impressive. And we will understand that student is trying to apply the knowledge in real life. Got it? Same way with PPP, purchasing power, not parity, purchasing PPF graph, demand graph. So if you have understood that currently recently you have observed the same thing in the society, you can mention it in your answer. And lastly, whenever possible, try to highlight the keywords. Like if you're answering a question which is related to PPF, then mention about scarcity, mention about possibilities, mention about trade-offs. So if you're mentioning those points, please highlight, make it bold, control B. And as I can't say that whenever you're writing the examination, I should say when you're typing the examination. So you should increase your typing speed. Make sure that there are no spelling mistakes, and whatever you're writing, it is time, whatever time is remaining, based on that you can complete your paper. So, and another thing is, there is some information, considering your examination, uh, some important points are mentioned on your portal, like how to prepare for examination and examination writing. So very good information, a wonderful information is provided by Dr. Penny Law. So how to study, that create timetable, study when your mind is alert, know your learning outcomes, know the case study, go over how to answer questions, form a study group, clarify issues, know all logistical details, make sure your other things like healthy lifestyle, maintain healthy lifestyle. At the time of examination, I would like to advise you that if you will stay away from social media, that will definitely help you. And apart from that, that timetable which you are preparing, that timetable will help you be positive. Never be upset. Certain times you may feel that yes, this topic is difficult, but read it twice thrice. On exam day, be calm and positive, be punctual. Then, and even in the examination, plan before writing. There are certain questions like uh, s- certain actions like critically examine. Then you should understand what exactly is expected, analyze. So what exactly is expected in analysis? So considering the question, please plan your answer. And keep time. Considering the time, you can answer the questions. As I told you, you can divide the time whenever writing examination. And always show your working. These calculations are not there for this subject, but yes, if for numerical subjects you can show the calculations. Write on every page, double check whatever you have written if it is correct or not, if everything is been saved, and be focused. At as examination is a thing which will be there for what we can say every all your entire lifetime. Those marks will be there. So considering this fact, what you can do is you can focus for each mark, whatever you are writing, uh, write it with full dedication. And this is my last suggestion, that if you focus more for these, for completing your graduation this year, next year, and the last year, then you will get graduated. So if you will invest your time in understanding all the concepts, all the subjects, all the modules, then the dividend of it you will get for the lifetime. So, and apart from this, if you're having any queries, if you're having any questions, then you can write me an email, you can ask me. So, and yes, definitely I will reply, if you're having any questions, any concerns. And this is what how to prepare for the examination. That link I have shared with you, and I think this link will help you for preparation of your examination. I'm also posting certain things related to your not examination, actually related to this module. So please go through it. This will help you. And as Zenale has mentioned, these PPT, I think though it is available on the website, still I'm sharing it with Zenale, as well as with another document related to exchange rates and absolute advantage, comparative advantage. That information will definitely help you. And I'm posting my email ID here in the chat box. Um, if you're having any questions, any concerns, any queries, please feel free to communicate. So this is all from my side. Thank you so much, and all the best for your upcoming examinations. Study well and score very good marks. Thank you. Any questions? If you're having any questions, please feel free to ask.